Good morning, everybody. Welcome in on a Thursday morning. In terms of sports, concerning sports out there, uh, we are waking up, as a lot of you may have gone to bed early last night, so you're waking up to an American tragedy that happened in D.C. last night when a Black Hawk helicopter collided with a commercial airline right there at Reagan National, right along the Potomac. Just an awful thing last night. A disaster that has so many questions and so much sorrow. And uh, there are 64 people, including crew members, that were aboard the commercial airline, and then the three soldiers that were on the Black Hawk helicopter. And it's hard to just fathom, because we haven't had a incident in the air in 16 years. We've had a lot of close calls of late.
Captain Sully, I think, was the last one.
I mean, it's a horrible accident that is not a rescue mission, but is a recovery mission. And I don't know if you guys have ever flown into that airport.
Several times.
I have not.
But if you fly in there, especially if you fly in kind of at night, the Potomac is lit up, and it's kind of a cool view. You can see the Kennedy Center. But just listening to people that are trying to figure out how this tragedy happened, I think it's going to get worse. I think when information comes out here in the next couple of days, in the next year plus, we're going to hear that, man, this could have been avoidable. But we don't have these kind of things happen in this country. It's amazing, guys.
Yeah, plane from Wichita really hits home.
Yeah. Well, and I know there is reports of members of the U.S. national figure skating team that were on board. I can't imagine the people that are waiting at the airport, because they were close to landing.
They were. I mean, from reports that I've seen, they were descending in. They were very, very close to. And I know there have been videos of people who were waiting for their loved ones outside of the airport, who were literally waiting for them. They were about to arrive. They were about to land. And to think that I don't know why I don't know. It's just one of those things you start thinking about.
And there's
what if it happened to you, and what if you were there, and what if you were waiting, and you're so excited to see those people and embrace them, and then they end up in that situation. It's just like you said, Gary, an American tragedy, and one that, man, it's gonna frustrate a lot of people when these things come out and we find out, what really happened. Because you're right, we are lucky enough where these things don't occur, and that we've created a base and a structure and where these things just don't happen. And flying is incredibly safe.
You're right. It's amazing in this country. There are thousands and thousands of flights each day that take off, and we don't have any incidents. Now, we've had more close calls of late.
Yeah.
But again, in this country, we've not had something like this in 16 years. And I'm watching a lot of news this morning, just because I've flown into that airport. I love to fly. I don't even think about it. I won't think about it the next time I get on a flight. But I'm thinking of these 67 people that probably have lost their lives. And I think the media is doing a disservice here. They keep calling it a rescue mission. This is a recovery mission.
Yeah. If you saw the video,
And, there is video from people that were driving that saw it. But I was watching Good Morning America this morning, and they have some aviation experts on, because the question is why? How does something like this happen when we have so many takeoffs and landings in this country, across the country, that go off without a hitch? And to hear aviation experts explain that it was probably a misdiagnosis by the training people that were the soldiers that were on the Black Hawk helicopter, of misidentifying a plane that they asked, can you see it? And they misidentified the wrong plane that was taking off, not the one that they collided with that was landing. So it's tough news to wake up in this country. It will dominate the news, as it should. And it just doesn't happen.
No,
it really doesn't happen. And when it does, and this is how it's become a safer form of travel. When I was younger, it would be, I wouldn't say a regular occurrence. Jimmy, you and I are around the same age,
right.
But
But we remember
there
some
would
things.
be more common where you would have tragedies in the air in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And for this last night, and I saw this when we got done with the basketball game, and I just, the whole way back from Vermilion, I was trying to watch as much as possible and trying to understand why.
I had to read it again. I was like, wait, am I reading this correctly? That this actually happened in 2025 here? And so, yeah. And like you, I've flown into that airport many times. So seeing that plane land on its descent, I was like, oh, I know that. I know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
it's
awful.
It's just, and I've grown up in an era or just in a life where, flying is incredibly safe. And It's one of the safest things. And I'm someone where I
prefer it over driving.
I personally don't like to fly, but people, always say to me, like, Matt, you're way more safer in the air than you are in the car. You're way safer there. And this is one of the very few instances in my life. And, my friends and I who've talked about it, over the last couple of hours and whatnot, we're seeing the news as it unfolds. It's tragedy. It's tragedy. And just when a mass loss of life like that happens and people start identifying it as something that could have been avoided, it just hits you a different way.
Yeah, it's an awful day in this country. So you know where to find that news. If anything changes, we'll let you know. But we couldn't begin the program this morning not talking about it. So it's no easy way to transition into what was a very interesting day around here. But we'll do it, and the best way to do it, we're just going to take a break here.
Okay.
When we come back, John Cook retired yesterday, and I'm not shocked. I'll explain why I'm not shocked, but what a day. The legend, the Cowboy, 25 years, says that it's time to retire, and he passed the torch to somebody who is a proven winner and is the perfect choice, was the right choice, has always been the choice, in Danny Busboom Kelly. So we'll talk about that. Creighton last night got a big victory.
Big win.
Omaha's 9-game winning streak got snapped last night in Vermilion. And Nebraska basketball tonight, they have the Fighting Illini. They have a guy that's going to go in the top 6 of the NBA draft. Will be in the building. It's a big game for Fred.
Hey, PBA has been blessed with the NBA talent they've gotten to see this year. Yeah. And this Yakachonis kid is no. You thought Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper were something to see. This Yakachonis is incredible.
The draft class, because last night was another good ball night.
Yeah.
Except if you were an Omaha fan. The draft class for 2025 is absolutely loaded.
It is stacked.
Speaking of Ace Bailey, he had a big night last night. Plus, spring game. And I will also tell you, yesterday was a very, very good day for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. A very, very good day that we will get into. Coming up a little bit later, Sarah Baker Hansen stops by. Steve Sipple will be in. He's got a thought or two on John Cook's retiring. There'll be a press conference today at 10 a.m. They'll carry it on the Connor Happer show. But it's a big deal when your press conference is at the Hawks Championship Center.
Yeah.
And that's where Coach Cook will have his press conference today. Also, Lincoln Arneil will join us. Lincoln has been on the Nebraska volleyball beat for a while, so he has a pretty good handle on not only John Cook's legacy, but what does it mean to Nebraska volleyball moving forward. And also we'll talk to Brian Edwards. That's all to come. That's the lineup brought to you by the Rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard. We'll be back to talk about sports after this on 1620 The Zone.
We've dreamed big here tonight. We really dreamed big. And Kennedy Orr wrote me a note today and said, Coach, tonight we'll do the impossible will be possible. We did it.
This is where the cowboy rides away.
All right, welcome back in, Gary and Matt. How about that yesterday?
Yeah.
One of the more interesting 21 minutes in the history of Nebraska athletics, a seamless transition where John Cook, after 25 years, announces his retirement, and they let it sit for a little bit, and then they announced the news that Danny Busboom Kelly was the new volleyball coach. I don't know. I had no inkling that this was coming, but I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked that this happened around this time. So let me tell you why. And let me also preface, John's a friend of mine. So I didn't have any knowledge. Like there was no tip off. And you have to understand the way yesterday was handled. I mean, that is a very John Cook way to go out.
Oh, million percent.
There's no leaks.
Yeah.
He's somebody who keeps it real. He is somebody who it was classy. Don't overthink this. He's 68 years old, and there's really nothing more that is out there. And he was able to do this his way in an incredible career where he leaves the best volleyball program in the country in a great spot. It was so, when this all unfolded yesterday, I was like, man, that is typical Coach Cook. Just the way that it rolls out and the kind of person that he is. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you why I think I was not shocked. Again, we talked about, for some odd reason, over the last couple of days, we talked about John Cook retiring. And I had no knowledge. But again, I'm not shocked, and I'll tell you why. Because, and then there's no like ulterior motive. There's no scandal.
Yeah.
There's no, I'm tired of NIL and this sport is just wearing me down. You know what happened yesterday is a guy, again, I'm gonna talk about the friend part, is somebody who is 68 years old and essentially has been a half bachelor living in Lincoln for the last couple of years. His wife comes back and forth between Lincoln and Wyoming. John lives downtown Lincoln. He's a grandpa, and that really, like, the Huskers and being a grandpa are like two of the biggest things in his life. And if you watch him over the last couple of years, and this job takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a beast. Mm-hmm. It can't be just, turn the dial. It's Nebraska volleyball. They get the number one recruiting class. Jalen Reyes goes out and he just recruits a bunch of players. I come in and I coach them up. It'll sap your energy because they have to keep the program at a high level, and that's the drive of the head volleyball coach at the University of Nebraska. But as I watched him from afar, and energy is a big word here. You know, it takes a lot of energy. And the timing really kind of makes sense because they've just come back to school. So the returning players are here. Your freshmen in another top recruiting class are on campus. And so he once made a comment about he wouldn't cheat the program. Like, it takes a huge commitment. Mm-hmm. And when it's time, it's time. And I can appreciate that he didn't string people along and you're back on campus. And trust me, their loss in the national semifinal hurt.
Oh, yeah.
It stung, and it probably carried for a while. But yesterday was just, that's very John Cook way to go out. Am I shocked that it happened now? A little. Am I shocked that it happened now? No, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm happy for him, and I'm also sad for him. I feel lucky enough that I got a response of thanks, bro, when I told him what an incredible career. It just, a guy that always dreamed big and took the program to a whole nother level gets to go out his way. And how friggin' cool is that? I mean, I think we're kind of sad because he's a legend, but it just, like, I can appreciate somebody that gets to go out that way with that much success. It's not like the program was going downhill, Matt. And it's like, well, we got to make a change. Our head coach is 68 years old. You know what? He has kept Nebraska volleyball at the pinnacle of the sport. They've grown the sport. They are the sport. Mm-hmm. And it was time to walk away. And I can appreciate that out of him. So kudos. And, he's been a little bit more emotional.
Sure.
It wasn't just volleyball day in Nebraska. Towards the end of the regular season,
He seemed.
I noticed that he teared up a little bit more. I mean, I hope people understand this. The University of Nebraska and the Huskers, and I say that because that's how he refers to his team. They're the Huskers. That's a big friggin' deal to him, that he was the head coach at Nebraska and that he got to be around the Huskers. And I'm happy for him. And I'm also happy that it's a seamless transition.
Well, when you talk about the transition and how it happened, it was classy. How they did it was classy.
It's a great word.
They brought Louisville into the room, and they had Danny Busboom Kelly come in and tell her players, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going to Nebraska. And at the same exact time, John Cook went into his locker room and told his Huskers or his team, hey, I'm leaving.
The Huskers.
I'm leaving. And that was so no leaks, no speculation, no rumors would go along. So they would all know, and they would get the genuine words from both head coaches. And then he got his time for people to be a little bit sad and then celebrate the fact that he had a great career. And then enough time went by, and now we're excited about Danny Busboom Kelly, who's been the premier coach, one of the premier coaches in all of volleyball, coming to Nebraska to coach. And it's so fitting that was the way that happened, classy, because myself and a lot of people would describe John Cook in that way, especially students who went to the university, who saw him coach, who saw him treat the student section in the manner in which he did. And he always had pride in that student section and always would comment on the student section and then celebrated with them during that number 1 versus number 2 match in the Devaney Center versus Wisconsin. After that big win, puts on the Cowboy hat. He is
my favorite.
A pro's pro. And I was watching a E60 on the volleyball team that came out a little bit ago. And he talked about how people told him not to take the Nebraska job because of how much success the program had under Terry Pettit already.
Yep.
And it reminded me a little bit, and you'll like this reference, Gary, because I thought of it watching it. They say in golf, it's not overly difficult to take your handicap from 20 to 10, but it's damn near impossible to take your handicap from 10 to 0.
Yeah.
And people fight and try their entire lives, and they never can get there. They never can make that big jump from 10 to 0. John Cook did that. He took Nebraska, who was already a steeped in tradition program, and not only did he elevate the Huskers, he elevated the sport.
Yeah.
And we talked about it earlier in the week. Funny enough, there are not 2 pro volleyball teams in Nebraska without John Cook in his contributions. And at some point, after just the winning and the national titles and the conference titles, it became about, no, we got to go from the 4,000 seat Coliseum to the 8,000 seat Devaney Center.
Yeah.
And even before that, it became, hey, football has a sellout streak. We got to get our own sellout streak, and we have to grow the sport. And then it turned into, we got to have volleyball day in Nebraska. And I'll tell you something right now. I speak on behalf of myself and everyone who graduated with me and the classes surrounding me. Thank you, John Cook, because volleyball day in Nebraska was one of the greatest days of my life. And it was one of the greatest days of all of my friends' lives to have that moment, to have that day, to spend it, to talk about the fact, hey, when we were students at the University of Nebraska, we were a part of that history. That does not happen without him. So I think all we can say from a student perspective, an alumni perspective, from a fan perspective, from a media perspective is thank you, because build the statue.
Yes.
Build the statue. I mean,
he'll be uncomfortable, by the way.
But
he will be. He will be.
He'll have to deal with it because he deserves it. Seriously.
Matt hit it on the nail. Classy. That's how I would describe John Cook. That's all I thought about yesterday. John Cook, if I were to describe him in one word, and you know best because you know him for so long, is class. He reminds me, and I don't think I'm being too dramatic here in saying this, he really has always reminded me of Tom Landry. Just the way he carries himself. The only thing that's missing is, wearing a suit every game and a fedora, but the cowboy hat will suffice. But yeah, the way everything was handled, I mean, to think people, including all of us, thought, oh, what happens when he retires? Oh, that was easy. okay,
Yeah.
they just keep on rolling, and the future is as bright as ever for that program.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't think he'd make it to now. I mean, there was a time, probably about 8-9 years ago, that he was about to burn out. And he was a little bit of a control freak, and he had seniors on a team that went on to win the national championship. They came to him, and they basically said, "Coach, trust us. We got this." I mean, John got dinged a little bit. Probably 15 years ago. And people are like, man, what's going on inside of the program? You got players that are disgruntled. And you had a team that was a little bit older, and they came to him and said, "Coach, we got it. We got it." And it kind of changed. And the thing I've always appreciated about John, and not just a volleyball coach, and for people that have heard John speak many times, he's more than the volleyball coach. I mean, he wanted to coach football. He actually had this idea that when he left Nebraska, this is when Trev was the AD at Omaha, he wanted to start a men's volleyball program at Omaha. Like he was like, I would love to do that. But he's always wanted to be on the radio and do a talk show. That's like his thing. He loves football. So he's more than just the volleyball coach. He's a guy that was highly successful, who dreamt big and took that program to a whole nother level. And you're bringing up Terry Pettit, and not easy to replace him. I mean,
friend of the show.
Terry Pettit put the program on a whole different stratosphere. John Cook walks in his first year, wins a national championship. I mean, hell, John went to the Final Four half of his years here. 12 times in the Final Four. He was here for 25 years. I mean, just do the math. I mean, hello. But he came in and took over the program, and because of his talent, where it either be coaching the sport, pushing the right button, his drive, his idea of dreaming big, I mean, he elevated Nebraska volleyball where people care about Nebraska volleyball. And this also shows you the impact of the GOAT. Look at how much run nationally this got.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, locally, there's a lot of great stuff that's been written and discussed because you've been around here for 25 years. Everybody they're like, I know that guy.
Yeah.
I've seen that guy. But the national media that picked up this story, and then a step further, Matt, is John Cook retiring yesterday almost made me think Kelly Sheffield, the head coach at Wisconsin, actually could be a good dude. I don't know if you saw the statement he put out, but it was a great statement.
Awesome.
Kirsten Bernthal Booth, who Coach Cook and Coach Booth working together in this state, she had a classy comment about John's retirement, and Danny Busboom Kelly taking over, a female at Nebraska in a high-profile sport, but classy. And then also, I think when people sit back and look at this, you should be in amazement, because I was here when they made the transition from T.O. to Coach Solich, and it was a little bit rocky because Bill Byrne wanted his guy, and T.O. said, "No, I got my guy."
Yeah.
And John, this has been in the works for a while. We'll talk more about DBK, but it'd been in the works. So this was the transition. I mean, heck, it was in her contract.
I was about to say,
without penalty, she could go to the place where she was an undergraduate. But to do this in the volleyball world, at the top of the sport, to have a seamless transition where it doesn't rock the sport, and everybody is on board. You brought up Louisville's already announced their head coach. So you had to bring all these entities together last week to go, it's time.
Mm-hmm.
And in Louisville, they go, yep, thank you.
Seamlessly.
We got our coach. Nebraska says, thank you. We got our coach. Now, people would put 2 and 2 together. The fact that DBK was at Love B on Friday night in Ralston. Sure. Yeah.
What? She was just watching some volleyball.
Yeah. But it just a seamless, that's amazing. That
doesn't happen. That doesn't happen.
In athletics, with a lot of people involved, you got egos involved. Okay,
Absolutely.
Some people want to make their decision like, I got to put a stamp on the program. You know what? Don't overthink Nebraska volleyball. John Cook never did. Don't overthink it. They got the perfect hire on somebody who is a proven winner that gets what it's like to coach here, because this isn't for everyone. This isn't like everywhere. And you go from John Cook to Danny Busboom Kelly. John leaves the roster in a great spot. He leaves the program in a good spot. There's no NCAA sanctions. It was time. And now it's time for Danny Busboom Kelly. Again, I'm happy for John, kind of sad for John, because I can't imagine Nebraska volleyball without John Cook on the sidelines.
Leave it better than you found it.
Yeah.
That's what he did. And I'm reading Dream Like a Champion. It's the John Cook's book that's also been, with the help of Brandon Vogel. And I was reading it last night. Something caught me a little bit. It was in chapter 6. He was talking about when he first took over at Nebraska, 2000, they win the national championship, and how after he won that national championship, he was obsessed with winning. He called it a bit of an ego thing, that he was just so driven toward that goal, and that a lot of young head coaches get kind of caught up in that goal of just win. And he talked about how he thought he knew everything. He was like, I didn't listen to too many people, and even when he took over the job, Coach Pettit told him, he goes, hey, surround yourself with people who are different than you, who have different ideas than you. And he even admitted, he's like, look, at first I didn't really do that.
Some of his initial coaching staffs, he definitely did that.
But he didn't, he thought he had all the answers, and he was a tough coach and he was a hard coach. But then it was crazy for me reading that now, because I'm like, that doesn't seem like the guy who's making TikToks. That doesn't seem like the guy who's invested in building relationships more than just coaching. That doesn't seem like the guy who is eating lunch with his team almost every day and catching up with them. And that is the definition of greatness, changing and adapting to continue to chase what you want to chase.
It's a lesson for all of us.
Right? Well, he could have easily have been stubborn and stuck in his ways, and maybe we would have gotten to the point where, all right, this is an older coach and Nebraska's taking a step back. It's time for a move on. Time has gone by. No. Yep. He adapted, he changed, and he continued the tradition at Nebraska and pushed it toward heights that weren't just Nebraska anymore. It was about the sport. It was about volleyball. And it's, like I said, I cannot keep saying it more. What he did, not only for the program, but just for the sport of volleyball is unmatched.
Yeah, he also probably halfway through his career, he reinvented himself. He's a lifelong learner. It's probably the best way to describe it. And
That's a great way to describe it.
I think when you're coaching at that level, and he's not alone. I mean, you go through the history of coaches that win championships and have programs that are national championship contenders every year. They can't get stuck in the way. They got to reinvent themselves. And I think that's what John did. And I think it's helped him navigate the new athlete. Yeah. Because he's got a little old school. He was a little old school at the beginning of his career. And the athlete has changed.
That's what makes the TikToks great.
Even before you got to the NIL and portal world, the athlete was changing. And I think it took him a couple of years to adapt. He had to learn some hard lessons, and he kind of reinvented himself and stuck with it and learned about the current athlete. And I think that carried him the rest of his career to get to the point where he was right back in the Final Four last year. So it's an amazing career, 25 years. I mean, there's more than him being the volleyball coach. I think
absolutely.
I think he's been a force in the athletic department. Hell, he did have a serious interest in being the athletic director before they hired Trev.
And fans wanted him.
Yeah, he's
like Bill Self at Kansas, the voice of reason. Yeah, everything's okay.
That was I don't know how I would have felt about that. I think he would have been great in that role, but it was a serious. I mean, it wasn't just, hey, we'll give you an interview. I think there was serious interest about John being the athletic director before they eventually hired Trev.
And I don't think anyone would have had any qualms about it if that were to have gone down, but they made the decision they made. And it's funny, you mentioned this news getting some national run. I had two different people who are outside of this state who texted me about it, like, hey, the heck's going on? One of them was a Louisville fan who was like, what the heck? And they were, and one of them was kind of trying to fish, was like, oh, is there something in the weeds?
Yeah,
is there something?
That's a great
weird?
Thing here. That's a great thing is there isn't. I'm burnt out from the NIL, the portal. I'm not.
Yeah, it's time. It's time.
Here's the thing, and let me quickly respond.
Sure,
because I think you're going to respond to what I'm going to say here.
Yeah.
This is on a tweet, and it's a fair question from Michael. He said, "I'm curious your thoughts on this. Much like Coach Saban at Alabama, how much did NIL and the transfer portal in today's college athletics hasten Coach Cook's retirement? It did not. And I want to go back to Saban because Saban was on a podcast with Channing Crowder, I think Ryan Clark, and there might have been another one.
It's their podcast, but there always is another guy in there. I know what you're referring to, though.
So they had Saban on, and they asked him why, if the new landscape of college football moved you out the door. And he said, no. You know what moved me out the door is I thought I was going to die. He goes, it took a toll on me physically and mentally coaching my last season at Alabama. Remember, they got off to a slow start.
Yeah.
He looked worn down.
But to keep that at the high level, and, John doesn't look worn down. I mean, he's great shape for 68 years old.
I didn't even know he's 68.
But I think, I just think it takes a lot of energy to run that program. And, they handled the NIL really well. They handled the portal really well. They had no players go in the portal.
Yeah.
Very doubtful that they will have any players. Probably, I won't say doubtful. They might have one, but it won't be a frontliner. I mean, they retained Jalen Reyes. People know Danny Busboom Kelly, and they know her background. I mean, he didn't lose anybody in the portal. It's just
they kept Kelly Hunter too. Kelly Hunter will be around as well. That's big.
It was time. It was time, and that's cool because you can go out on your own terms.
And few people do.
And you can do it your way, where we have a plan in place. I just wake up one day and I go, you know what? Feels like it's time, and let's put this in motion. I'm not going to mess with anybody. I'm going to go to my athletic director. I'm going to tell him, and then things start to fall in line. And you have 21 minutes where you went from the announcement where people went, "Whoa," to, "Oh,
yeah." You went. That's the best way to put it. You went from, "Oh, dang it," to, "Oh, okay." Like this was planned. Yeah. This was the passing of the torch. It makes sense. Let's go back to the transition, right? I'm sure there are a lot of coaches who, if they coach at a place that John Cook coached, and this isn't just college, this is just anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. You can do high school, maybe it was they created a Pop Warner program, whatever. When they're in that place for a long time and they created that amount of success, they might go to bed thinking, man, I hope the program continues to go in that direction. I hope they hire the next person correctly. I hope that all the work that I put in isn't for naught. I don't think John Cook is going to lose a wink of sleep thinking about who's taking over his program. Danny Busboom Kelly not only has come up under John Cook as a player, but as a coach, but has had a tremendous amount of success at Louisville. And so
she went 203 and 44. 2 of the last 3 years she's been in the national championship match.
They didn't make an Elite Eight before she came to that program. They ended up making 5 in the 8 years that she was there. And so, look, sometimes it just, like you mentioned, and honestly, it's something that I didn't know about him being in one place and his family being in another place, and how important it is to be a grandfather to him. And look, absolutely, this was supposed to be the year for them to win the national championship and for them to not only just lose in the Final Four, but then, get reverse swept by a team that they had played in the past. And I'm sure that took a toll, but it's one of those things where what else is there really for him to accomplish? 25 years, 12 Final Fours, 4 national championships, and he not only just took Nebraska, but took volleyball to new heights that we never thought of before. And I'll tell you something right now, the Supernovas look at themselves as the premier program in pro volleyball. And I don't think that program would be the way that it is without John Cook being around. I don't know if they get that attendance without him building the sport in this state. And there's a reason why this year, when they were making their roster, they said, hey, we got to get Huskers. We got to get, ex Nebraska players could be on this roster because they're a draw. And so it's one of those rare instances where we're not just talking about a coach who did a great thing at a university. He did a great thing for the entirety of the sport that he was playing or he was coaching.
So they'll have a press conference at 10 a.m. Danny Busboom Kelly will be back in town. I don't know that, she may speak today, but they're having a celebration, a public celebration. There'll be a lot of emotion.
Absolutely.
There'll be a lot of emotion. There'll probably be a lot of people that, I imagine Coach Osborne will be there. At one time, Coach Osborne was, he was not the head football coach. When John came back to Nebraska as the head coach, it was Frank. Ironically, there was a transition from T.O. to Frank, but John had T.O. as his boss, and they bounced a lot of things off of him, and he holds Coach Osborne in high regard. It's, John dreaming big. They got out of the Coliseum. They went to the Devaney Center. They turned it into a palace to volleyball. They play in Memorial Stadium. They're going to play in PBA. Ironically, he will not coach in PBA. He will, hand it off, and Nebraska's opening match will be at PBA against Pitt coming up in August for Danny Busboom Kelly. Now, here's the thing about DBK is, and she was always the choice.
Yeah.
I think if I had to list 3 people that were prime for the job, that get the job, that are very, very good at what they do, she is number 1. Like you know me, I never hesitated. I knew this was the plan because Danny went and basically she bet on herself to go run a program that, had no traction and built it like she did. And she's always been a winner.
Yeah.
When she was in high school, when she was at Nebraska, she was always a winner. So she gets the job, and she also has the resume and the success and how she empowers players. So she was always the choice. Then, Jalen Reyes, which that's huge.
Massive.
That Nebraska retained him, and they work quickly. I think that was probably part of the discussion is John communicated very well with everybody on how this was going to go because Jalen Reyes signed a new contract yesterday. I don't know if you guys have been around college athletics. Man, you got so much red tape and it moves slow. They got a new contract for Jalen Reyes. So he would be second, and then I would have looked downtown. Kirsten Bernthal Booth. Those would have been my 3 candidates for this job. But they got the perfect hire. She's a winner. She's a Husker. Her husband played football at Nebraska. So they get what it's like. She lived basically outside of Lincoln. So this will not be new to her. And, her and John have talked, a lot.
Sure.
You kind of, I wonder, and, maybe she'll talk about this, Matt, but did she in her head, once she knew that this was going to be the plan, because it was in her contract, did she run her program with the mindset of this is what Nebraska does, this is what we're going to do at Louisville, and this is what we'll be able to carry from Louisville back to Nebraska to add what they have?
Well, I really do think that, because that's what she was taught, right? She wasn't taught anything different than that. And what was so impressive about Danny Busboom Kelly is that, it's not like she went to Louisville and was getting number 1, number 2, number 3 recruiting classes. They were typically in the teens in recruiting, and she was able to get people like Anna DeBeer into the program, the Kentucky High School Player of the Year, and develop them, and so many different ACC Players of the Year, All-Americans and whatnot, and develop them into a powerhouse in volleyball, to a legitimate name in volleyball, to a brand in volleyball, to something, I know people who go to Louisville who loved going to volleyball games, who loved watching volleyball. She built that program up to that point, and it's incredibly, incredibly impressive what she did there. She rose that program to heights that they never expected that they could go to. And I think you're absolutely right. Maybe she did it unconsciously, though. She built that Louisville program the way that Nebraska's built, because that's all she had. Now, granted, she had gone to Tennessee and she had a year in Louisville as well, so she got that other experiences. But as a player and as an assistant coach in Nebraska, that's all she knows. And I think that's why that's so important, why this transition will be so – right now, I think it'll be so seamless, because there's a lot of similarities, and she was brought up in that, and there's a value in that. I want to shout out Husker Online writer Abby Barmore, who reached out to some recruits, Jaden Robinson and Gabby DeVita, upon the announcement that John Cook was leaving and Danny Busboom Kelly is coming into the program. She was able to reach out to them, talk to them, wrote a great article about it. And it all goes back to the point, in this article, Gabby DeVita and Jada Robinson say, well, it's really important Jalen Reyes and Kelly Hunter are still a part of the program, because we have a ton of relationships with them. We've talked to them so much. We've known them for so long. And they both, in the article, go, no, we're Nebraska. We're going to stay. We're going to stick around because those people there are there. But we also know that Danny Busboom Kelly's a winner.
Yeah.
And she's a great coach. And so Troy Dannon said it on his monthly radio show on the Husker Radio Network. There's no such thing as seamless, but this is as close to it as it gets.
Well, I think, man, you're going to teach a lesson to people, because this is to do this, to get 2 programs on board, it's amazing how this all went down.
It is.
A couple of emails here on this topic of John Cook. Again, he'll have a press conference at 10 today. And also, I think...
So Danny Busboom Kelly, I'm sorry to interrupt here. She will talk. We got an email from the media people. She will talk on Thursday, February 6th.
So that's the celebration they're having?
Yes.
So she's, I believe she and Lane are expecting their second child.
Yes, I did see that as well.
Like this spring?
Yes, I did see that tweet. So that's crazy. So I also, I don't know where I saw it, but I did see that she will be there today. Then she's going to go back to Louisville.
She's going to meet the players today.
Yeah. And then she's going to move her life, to Lincoln, which, I mean, that's a really, really quick move. And, good luck to her. I just went through a move myself. It's not fun. It's not fun doing that. I'm sure she's got more things to move than I do.
It gets worse as you get older.
So like the current Nebraska volleyball team will be there.
Yeah.
This will be a very tough day for Harper Murray.
Yeah.
John Cook was one of the best things that happened to her. And so I wonder if she'll speak today. But that will be a very, very emotional day for her.
Do you think he'll have, Coach K kept his office in the, he still might have an office in the Duke athletic department, even after his retirement.
Yeah, I don't think so.
You don't think? Okay.
I think
his ranch would be the office.
I don't think John wants to hang around the program. I think, Terry Pettit didn't hang around the program, but was available if needed. I think John will go and be a grandpa.
Yeah.
And that's
what for
that's
TV.
That's
awesome.
Yeah.
But he'll always be, he'll always be there. He just won't be there, if that makes sense. Zach writes in to the Equitable Bank inbox. He goes, it sucks to lose John Cook, but Busboom Kelly was the best hire they could have made to replace him. The coaching list to replace Cook only had 2 names, DBK and Jalen. Busboom Kelly's work speaks for itself in building Louisville, and she has in her contract that her buyout doesn't apply if she leaves for Nebraska. And Reyes currently basically runs a lot of the aspects of the team, best recruiter. My biggest concern is if they wouldn't have kept Jalen. Now knowing that Reyes and Hunter are staying, it's the best possible scenario. And anyone saying that Jordan Larson was even a possibility to be offered the job needs to stop. There was absolutely 0 chance of that happening. And then Zach shares a text. So, I mean, I think people get it. And it's amazing that you handed the torch off of the top program in that sport. That doesn't happen.
No.
Like, even look at Saban. Going back to Michael asking about Saban and his departure after last year. There was a leg time, and they kicked the tires with Lanning. There was no...
There were a lot of people they called before
there was no... there was like no plan in place.
They weren't expecting
Like
this.
Greg Byrne didn't have a list. Like Bill Byrne always told me he had a list. Like when T.O. came to him and said, hey, Frank's going to be my successor, and Bill went, I got Mac Brown. He's at the top of my list. And Frank said, or T.O. said, no, it's Frank. This case, Troy Dannon, get out the way. Don't overthink it.
Yeah.
When you got a guy telling you that knows the program that is making $7 million. A female sport is making $7 million. You just say, John, I trust you. That's who.
Let's get it done.
That's who you want. I have no problem that the program will.
And I want to give credit to Louisville because they could have been bitter and they could have fought it and they could have been a negativity here. But the fact that they respect Danny Busboom Kelly so much and they understood that this is what she's wanted and this is what she was working for, and the fact that they not only just allowed it to happen, but they worked with it to happen and they understood the process, and they were I don't want to act like big bro here, like they were thankful for like the program that she built, but the fact that they were also lockstep with Nebraska and getting this done and having this happen. And then we're also very I think I know the name off the top of his head. I saw the report of what his name is, who they So, he was there for 8 years and he knows that program and he was under.
I think everybody knew that this was the plan. They just didn't know when it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So everybody was on board.
Yeah.
And, you got 2 relatively new athletic directors at Louisville and Nebraska that they come in and they're like, hey, I want you to know that when it's time, this is what's going to happen. And the ADs go, Okay,
cool. It's almost like
just let me know.
It's almost like they walked into a situation. They walked into a marriage pact. They're like, "Oh, this is okay, cool. We'll just go along with it." And they did a great job. So that was awesome.
The University of Nebraska Lincoln and Troy Dannon had a great day yesterday.
Yeah.
All class. It started with the radio group being renamed for Greg Sharp, and it ended with a seamless transition in one of the top sports in America. KG asked, so was the plan to retire since the Final Four? Just wondering, because it was a quick transition.
I don't know. I couldn't.
I mean, I know after the Final Four, after the loss, and, it was emotional. I think he had time to think about it. I think here he didn't want to wait too long because they're just starting up to get ready for the 25 season, and I don't think he wanted to go through it and then like in February go, I'm out. Instead, players are coming back. They're starting school. Let's be honest with him, because he made the decision on Tuesday or on Thursday of last week. They showed up. Their first day of school was Tuesday. They started to come back into the facility. I don't know. I think he just handled it really, really well. It wasn't. There's no scandal. There's nothing like that. No. It's just I'm 68. It's time. You wake up. I mean,
I don't want to go to work anymore.
Look at this.
I want to relax.
Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm on the back nine. I'm going to wake up one morning and say, man, 6 a.m. is not for me anymore. And that's it. I'm not going to give 2 weeks, by the way. I'm just going to say, I'm out. Thanks for the mems. Thanks for the opportunity.
The crossover is next.
Well, because I think that's why would I cheat the show?
Yeah.
You wouldn't cheat the show. He didn't want to cheat the University of Nebraska. Why stay with it if you don't have the energy and you're thinking, man, is this time? Is this time? Is it time? And then it also happens that you have a hell of a plan in place.
Exactly.
Where it makes it a little bit easier. Now, if there was no plan in place, would he have stuck around and then they go, hey, privately, this is my last year. It'll give us an opportunity to vet some people.
Yeah.
So, all right. When we come back, part of John Cook leaving, do we need to update or leave it alone the Mount Rushmore of Nebraska coaches? Ooh. Because the man that retired yesterday and will speak today at 10 a.m. in the Hawks Championship Center, not on the 6th floor. He's in the Hawks Championship
That's how
Center.
you know it's a big deal. Even I know it's a big deal when they put it in the Hawks.
John Cook is on the Mount Rushmore. Who are the other three that are there? Plus, we'll talk about what happened last night, whether it was Blue Nebraska, Black Nebraska, Red Nebraska plays tonight at PBA. It's the Super Bowl for Fred Hoiberg.
It is.
What the hell?
No, it is.
Why would you say that?
No, it is. Every game is a Super Bowl.
They are desperate. That is a desperate basketball team that'll play as only a 3.5-point underdog tonight.
When you go from almost being in the NCAA tournament as a 5 seed to talking about the sports psychologist in the program a couple weeks later. Oof.
Yeah, there were some desperate words that were said yesterday that were a little bit jarring to me. A little bit later, Sarah Baker Hansen stops by. Steve Sipple, Lincoln Arneil. His thoughts on the transition and maybe an anecdote or two on John Cook.
Absolutely.
And Brian Edwards on 1620 The Zone. All right, hour number 2 on a Thursday morning. I am completely out on Napoleon Dynamite, who is the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's bad.
Okay,
when that's
so
the comparison.
I saw a video of him dapping up Baker Mayfield when he was named the offensive coordinator and he was even more embarrassing than Duval.
See, that's why I don't like him, because I can't get that out of my head.
He's a cornball.
Duval.
He's a what?
He's a cornball.
I've never heard that before.
Really?
Like a corn
I've had a
fritter?
popcorn ball. I've never heard somebody referred to as a corn ball.
I've had a corn nugget.
Really?
No,
No, that's pretty common.
I've heard like corny.
See, my thing is that I have a whole Rolodex of insults just from playing hockey for so long that it's just like the list of things that I can call people to initiate an insult is a little bit too long for how young I am. But yeah, he's a cornball. Cornball. Like he's corny, but like he's so corny, he's a ball. Cornball.
How corny is? I'm sorry. Watching old match games the other day.
You know?
When you just stop at corny, why do you got to add the ball?
It's just a saying. It's
Is
a
that
phrase.
worse than
I
corny?
didn't create it. It's just what people call people who are like that. The dude's a cornball.
It's like
Dude's a
DEFCON
cornball.
2, DEFCON 3. Which one's worse?
I've never been
Really?
referred to as a cornball.
I've been referred to as a cornball.
Goofball.
Oh yeah,
Goofball.
goofball. The same. It's kind of in the same, like relative area. Dude's a cornball.
Poll question.
No,
Has
yeah.
anybody ever heard of cornball?
In terms, yeah. Poll question: have you heard of cornball as an insult? Dude's a cornball.
And also, should we bring back the popcorn ball, which appears to have disappeared from our food selection?
Popcorn ball.
Ever had a popcorn ball?
No.
It's got a little glaze.
Yeah.
Popcorn sticks together. And it's in the shape of a
Halloween.
ball.
Old lady usually gave it
Oh,
away.
okay. That sounds good.
That's true.
That's something I would hear.
You're
That's
like,
true.
damn it.
Did COVID kill the
Look.
popcorn ball on Halloween?
Tracy goes, I'm old and I have heard of cornball.
Really?
Wow.
I
That's
feel-
very rare. That's a
I-
very rare instance in which I say something that you've never heard of.
I feel neglected that I've never been called a cornball. Maybe in Iowa.
But you're not a cornball, though. Like you
Well, I
are.
want to be called a cornball. Now.
No, because
I want somebody to stop me on the street and go,
No,
"You're a cornball."
no, you're not because you don't
You're like
have
the
the
corn
person-
husker. I
You
went
don't
to
have
Nebraska.
the personality of a cornball. Like that, what his personality is of just being like cringy and corny and weird, and everything's always an act, you know. And it's just like it's just always
Like Russell Wilson.
like he can't go up to someone and be like, "How you doing, Liam Cohen? Nice to meet you." Like he's got to like wear this like he's got to go Duval and like dap people up and like try and be cool and then like go to his office and be like, "Oh my God, man, look at this thing, dude!" Like
Polls up
that's
at the
cornball.
Twitter page, by the way, for those
Cornball.
to play with.
He's a big bro guy.
Yeah, cornball.
Like speaking of John Cook, I showed you that text. John Cook's a big bro guy. Thanks, bro. Liam Cohen is like a bro guy.
Not bra.
Yeah. Scotty writes in the chat, cornball. Yes. Also popcorn.
That's two of them.
Yes, please.
But they're different.
Popcorn. Yeah, I've never heard of popcorn.
Like, I'm not going to say to some South Dakota fan last night in Vermillion, "Hey, you're a popcorn ball,"
Yeah.
Ah!
or "You're a corn ball."
See that? Like once again, that's when you think of now. I've widened your horizon in terms of
I'm gonna
vocabulary.
study this
insults.
insult.
Yeah, no. That is when you think of what is a cornball. If you were ever to meet someone who reminds you of Liam Cohen, because he is the prime definition of what that is.
You should work that into your Saturday thing during football season with the guys. That'd be funny. Call one of them a corn.
So because now he just I can't get Duval out of my head.
I see his face.
It's the smile. It's like the smile.
What if he's a great coach?
I know. Watch him win.
Doesn't he look a little bit like Biff from Back to the Future?
Nice.
I said Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
Like Biff with the
Like more so though Biff when
He hated
he's-
manure.
Like Biff in Back to the Future.
Hold on.
What'd you say?
Does anybody enjoy manure that's not in the business to make money off of it?
Eagles fans, if they end up winning Super
All
Bowls,
fine,
apparently.
Who enjoys manure?
He enjoys taking manure in order to make it into great TV on his SEC
No,
network.
I'm talking about actual
Like
manure.
actually
Oh.
eating it.
Horses.
Manure.
I don't know.
Just in Philly. So there's your inspiration for the Chiefs to win a Super Bowl. Or
He
not.
looks a little bit like Biff in Back to the Future too when he becomes rich off of the sports almanac. You know, with the like
Rich,
slick back
powerful,
hair.
married
rich,
to his mother.
powerful. Biff a little bit.
He owned the
He's got a little
police.
bit. Napoleon Dynamite I can see too. Is he just bothering you? You're just seeing more and more clips, and he's just a guy who just inherently bothers you.
Well, I can't get his phrase out of my head.
Yeah.
Like, damn him, I need to, Ariana Grande, get into my head. I need a song. But all I got is, KG writes, the question is, who hasn't heard of cornball? I think this is a Nebraska, Chicago thing. We don't do this in Iowa.
Matt's looking good right now on his poll.
No, I grew up, he says, KG says that's something we as kids used to say back in elementary school.
Now is it? Yeah, no, all the time.
I have never heard of
88% right now, so Matt's looking pretty good.
And no, it wasn't an argument. It's just
1% of the returns are in there.
1%. Too early to call. Too early to call.
Thanks, Tim Russell.
If we're looking at these counties here, we see that in past polls, Gary Sharp dominates here in this lower part of Nebraska. Look, only reporting 13% so far. So a lot of votes that are going to come in for Gary Sharp here. So too early to call. I'm going to tell you right now.
I want to find somebody and call him a cornball today. But I feel like as an older person, it would be very awkward.
There's no crossover today, so you do it there.
And this is I'm being totally honest here. When people ask me, like, who do you want to be in your career? Like, who do you want to emulate your career after? There are multiple people who I say, you being one of them, a couple of people in Chicago that I want to have. I want to be that type of broadcaster. I want to be that type of radio host. I want to seriously, that's what I want my career to be like. But if that were to fail, I would love to be.
What?
I'm listening. If that doesn't work out,
let me grab one of the halls here. Battling the cold. I'm going to listen to this.
If that does not work out, if I can't end up being a mix of you and a mix of other radio hosts that I love, if I can't end up hitting those high hopes, I would love to be the host of Survivor. Okay.
Oh, okay. Jeff Probst.
I would kill it. I would be awesome. Tamatoa wins immunity. You know,
you should talk
I would be great at that. Or I would love to be Kornacki and just with the map and the hitting the counties. But then also you're watching the Kentucky Derby and you're like, is that the CNN vote counter guy doing horse racing right now? Is he talking about Irad Ortiz Jr. and whether or not he's going to use the inside pole position to get his horse to the? Is that you can? And then you go to the Super Bowl and you're like, oh my God, is that Kornacki doing live betting on the Super Bowl and what the odds should be and who you should be hammering? That's third on my list. So if I can't be you and I can't be Jeff Probst, I want to be Steve Kornacki, and I just want to show up everywhere with a big screen and start touching things.
I'm a fan of Kornacki. People think that he's overutilized by NBC. But you know what they need? So this is, if you want to be Kornacki, I want to be Kornacki. I think that there should be a Steve Kornacki that describes TV sports ratings. Oh, because people don't understand them.
desperate. I'm going to tune in for that. But Bill put Kyle and I as partners together.
Yeah.
And so there are literal videos of Kyle Perry and I doing full-on sportscast together. And when he did it, and he was really, really good, when I found out he was going to the Savannah Bananas, I go, there's no perfect organization for Kyle Perry than that.
So they've already announced their schedule. Downtown and Warner Park have both tried to get the Savannah Bananas here. They're back in Des Moines. They're in Kansas City, but they're not coming here. So Dan and last night said they've had discussions. I think they are playing at Death Valley in Clemson.
I can look that up.
I think on their world schedule this year, they are playing a game at Clemson. So it is doable. I bet this happens in 2026. As long as Kyle Perry is still with the Savannah Bananas, I bet that the Savannah Bananas play at Memorial Stadium in 2026.
So my brother, he's 4 years older than me. He is not a sports guy. Okay, we are exact opposite.
He loves the Bananas.
No, he loves
Potassium?
minor league hats. He loves
Smart guy.
minor league baseball caps.
Does he have an old school Fort Myers Miracle hat?
So no, he does not. He's got the
Can't get that anymore.
He's got the Fort Wayne tin caps.
Yeah.
He's got
of course.
the Flying Squirrels.
Nice.
He's got
From Richmond.
yes. He's got the Montgomery biscuits.
Mm-hmm.
And this year I'm going to get him two. Okay, I'm going to get him. I think it's the Portland Pickles.
Ooh, yes.
And I'm going to get him a Savannah Bananas hat. So
What a good brother.
Savannah Bananas.
Yeah.
we're gonna add to the
baseball.
it's
Shout
his
out,
favorite, and he goes and he gets people who he also has a Japanese style Husker hat as well.
Okay.
That
Big fan of Tominaga.
Mhm.
No, and it's got "Go Big Red" on the side in Japanese, and it's like
Even
really,
Tominaga
really cool.
doesn't wear a Husker hat in Japanese.
Mesa, Arizona, Glendale, Arizona, Fort Myers, Florida, Savannah,
warm.
Georgia, Miami, Florida, Savannah, Georgia, Tampa Bay, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, and then in April, that was all March. In April, it's St. Louis, Savannah, Clemson,
Yep.
Savannah, Nashville, Kansas City, Albuquerque, Anaheim. How many?
I don't think you need to go through the whole schedule. Clemson.
How
you just
many?
mentioned.
How many things do you think through March?
Coming up next, we read
through
the entire
February,
NBA schedule.
through February and March. How many games do you think they have sold out?
The whole schedule.
Yeah.
They're sold out in Fort Myers.
The
I know that.
whole schedule is
They're-
sold out.
It's pretty wild. Their agreement, because I know the Fort Myers agreement, it's very interesting what they get. I mean, it's worth it. You're going to sell tickets. You're going to make some money, but they control everything.
Yeah,
But
Keegan makes a great point.
I think in 2026, they'll play at Memorial Stadium. If playing at Clemson goes off well,
Yeah.
there will be more large college football stadiums that they will try and
That's nice.
get into. All right, Sean tweets at the show about John Cook again at 10 o'clock this morning. The midday show will carry the live press conference.
I like how you said that.
Live.
Live.
Local and late break.
Hey, it will not be taped.
Yeah, won't say recorded
won't-
earlier
That
tonight.
was unfortunate yesterday
It
afternoon
was.
show. Taped the last hour. John Cook News drops at 5. People are like, why isn't Mike Schaefer talking about it?
They hate volleyball.
You know, that happened. The previous radio show that I was on. The first year I was on, it was the coaching search,
Yeah.
right? We're searching for a coach. That we spent show after show after show, speculation after speculation, different types of guys that we would like Nebraska to hire. And then the one show that I missed because I was on break from school, Matt Rule comes on at ESPN Game Day, announces that he's going to be the head coach of Nebraska. And I'm like, what the heck?
You're like that
I was
gif
spending
of
like
Leo
my
pointing.
entire young career talking about who Nebraska's going to hire. And of course, that guy gets hired live when the show is happening. And I was at home. And I was like, this sucks. It sucks.
Well, I'm telling you.
It's terrible.
Just picture him on his
well,
couch.
Well, I have this run of when I'm like on vacation or out, something big's going to happen.
Ooh, that's
So,
right.
I mean, look at
Hmm.
like traveling for basketball.
Yeah.
The days that have been gone, there've been some like significant stuff.
There has.
Like
There has.
I mean, we got back at midnight last night. I could have said, nah, you know what? I'm going to sleep in. We got to talk about Coach Cook. Sean says, the John Cook that left Nebraska is not the same John Cook that came to Nebraska.
Mhm.
The one that came here was one of the hardest coaches to work and play for. There's a reason his daughter started at UCLA and no assistance came with him from Wisconsin.
He changed.
Do you know that,
Exactly.
there was a point in Lauren's time living in Lincoln Taylor Martinez could have been John Cook's son-in-law.
Yeah.
There's an
Didn't know
alternate
about that.
universe.
That was.
Yeah, I don't think that was going to go very far. Yeah. But his daughter, had a little trouble. I mean, John has navigated a lot of different things. That's why I keep saying he's reinvented himself. He's kept it real. And what happened yesterday is just, that's very John Cook to go out that way. Say goodbye, kind of on the horse, ride off into the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
The program is in a great spot.
Great spot.
You're handing it over.
I'll be your biggest fan.
And I think regardless if they won a national championship or not, he wouldn't have said, "Oh, no, we're going to try and do this again." I think he would have just said, "You know what? It's just time." This was him. It was time, and I'm glad that he kind of was selfish.
Oh my God, me too.
And I say that in a nice way.
Yeah.
That he was like, "You know what? It just is time."
Yeah.
And that's okay to say that. All right, when we come back, discuss amongst yourselves. You can fight me if you'd like. The Mount Rushmore of Nebraska coaches: Devaney Osborne, John Cook, Dave Van Horn. Coming up at 8 o'clock. Sarah Baker Hansen stops by. Steve Sipple as well. Nebraska men's basketball tonight, 7:30. Oh, look at that. 30 minutes earlier.
Yes.
Maybe we'll get home in time.
Why can't we have
6?
Why
No,
can't we have nice things?
I just want to have a Saturday. I haven't been to a
Afternoon.
game since Indiana. Like, why can't we
They
do?
haven't played
That's
many
true.
Saturday games.
No, what are we doing here? Like, I want to go. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking about going tonight. I might go tonight.
You should.
But-
You're young.
I don't know. My sleep schedule's all a mess.
No, it gets worse. Go enjoy the game.
Uh,
You want to be like him? He'd go to the
Hey,
game.
you can see a guy that's going to be drafted in the top 10.
I do want to see Yakuchonis play.
You could see Brad Underwood. Hell of a coach.
No Ivicic though for
Yeah. The third straight game he's out with
third
Mono?
straight game. He's out with Mono. That's
Yeah,
a massive loss.
Leading
for him.
rebounder?
It's a massive loss for them. I mean, he was an anchor for that team, and so they are hoping and praying and crossing their fingers that this is a short Mono stint. But I don't know how many of those he really gets.
Yeah, a long time to be out with Mono.
No,
bet.
Mono can last a while.
Really?
Oh, Mono
I
can
have-
last a very long time. You can have a long-term effects of Mono as well. Mono's a serious.
Well, I know it's serious. I have avoided COVID and Mono.
Wow.
But they're
Congratulations.
like when I was younger, like there were guys that I went to school with who were like, I got Mono. And wasn't it the kissing disease?
Yeah.
I was
Am I
like,
supposed to high five you?
I'd like that.
I want like my roommate got Mono, and it took him like 4 weeks to like get over it. But then even after it, he was sluggish, for a little bit as well. It's a hard thing to get over.
All right, people have thoughts on the Mount Rushmore. Again, mine, and I'll fight you. Devaney Osborne, Cook, Dave Van Horn. It's Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes during the playoffs, which players are going off and which ones are ice cold. With over 5 million happy players and counting, and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Every dog deserves a second chance. With Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose. They've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. You can create entries with all football picks or mix and match across all your favorite sports. This week on Underdog, I'm all over college basketball. In fact, tonight, let's maybe have some fun with the Nebraska game. I don't know. I'll get the other guys' opinions, see what they think. Underdog is the best place to play Pick'em. Download the app, sign up with promo code ZONE, deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code ZONE. Must be 18 plus in Nebraska, present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms of play. Of course, concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
All right, off and running on a Thursday morning. If you are just waking up, the absolute tragedy that happened at Reagan National Airport, 67 people were involved, 60 passengers, 4 crew members on a commercial airline from Wichita to Washington, D.C., collided with a Black Hawk helicopter that had 3 soldiers aboard. It is a recovery mission, not a rescue mission. Just an American tragedy that you may be waking up to this morning. All right, welcome back in. Sarah Baker Hansen going to join us at the top of the hour. All right, let's have a discussion here about the Mount Rushmore.
You revealed yours.
Devaney and Osborne are the permanent members of Mount Rushmore. I think there's probably a general consensus because I'm seeing people's responses that John Cook is on there. I said Dave Van Horn. I will explain it after you reveal your Mount Rushmore, but there's some, like Greg says, does Francis Allen, Terry Pettit.
I got one I don't want it to get revealed before because it's not either of those two.
Okay.
Doc
you
Sadler?
look at those Bob Devaney, Tom Osborne, John Cook.
Mm-hmm.
What do those 3 have in common?
They have won some championships.
They have that, and they were at Nebraska for an incredibly long time, for decades.
Yeah, how about T.O. retired after 25 years?
Yeah. And
that was your
young
mentor?
Oh, yeah?
Huh?
Oh, yeah. Maybe,
Ask the question today.
Maybe.
Ask the question if
sure
25 has anything to do.
Does it have significance? That would be a good question. But all 3 of those guys were at Nebraska for a very, very long time. And so immediately, I just like my Mount Rushmores to have some continuity. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like people who have been there for a very, very long time, who have made a long lasting impact. So I think Dave Van Horn, I think, credit to you. Like, I'm not going to disagree. I'm not going to push back. He was only the head coach at Nebraska for 5 seasons, 98, 2002, but the amount of success and relative to what Nebraska has done since then is absolutely astounding. And then on top of what he's done at Arkansas, right? So I'll get no pushback there. But for me, Rhonda Revelle has been a part of 36 of 49 softball seasons.
Mm-hmm.
She's the winningest coach in Nebraska athletics history ever, male or female. She's got over 1,100 wins in her career. She's won 8 conference titles. She's been to the College World Series for softball 4 times. And Nebraska women's athletics matters greatly. And it is such a pillar of the athletic department. It is a bit of an identity of what that athletic department is. And there are people at Nebraska who are proud that Nebraska takes women's athletics so seriously. And so it's not a discredit to Pettit or Van Horn or anyone on there, but I just think it's only right the 4th member of the Nebraska Athletic Mount Rushmore is a woman who has made an incredible impact on the athletic department. And so for me, because of just how much history that she means to that program, that softball program, and how much success that she's had, she would be the 4th member of that Mount Rushmore.
John would like to retire the Mount Rushmore phrase. John, we don't ever talk about this. When somebody retires, we get to talk about this. There's a mention for a Bill Straub. But as people that know or longtime listeners of the program, he's dead to me. Okay? I don't care that he won bowling national championships. He's dead to me on this show. He stood us up, promised to come on, never called.
Wow.
He's dead to me. Those championships mean nil. Nil. I even ran into him a couple of years after that. And I said, Coach, would have been nice to get you on the air.
What did he say?
He was like, ah. And I'm like, dead to me. Not going to happen. Now, I kid me.
You and I, this is why we get along. Grudges. Nothing wrong with a grudge.
Hey.
Nothing wrong with it.
Hey.
Nothing wrong
you
with
can't hold a candle to my ability to hold grudges.
This is why we work.
I'm like, you know what? Maybe you have some championships, but you stood us up after winning a championship. You said you'd come on the show. Didn't come on the show. You're not on the Mount Rushmore. You know what? People in South Dakota are moving your face off the Mount Rushmore. Francis Allen's getting a lot of run. Now, what it shows is Nebraska's had this stretch. And kind of what you were saying about Dave Van Horn, and I'll explain why I think DVH is on the Mount Rushmore. And I had a front row seat to his entire career at Nebraska, is Nebraska is kind of a unique place.
It is.
From the standpoint that whether it be Rhonda Revelle or John Walker or Mark Manning, they have some coaches that have been here for a long time, like Gary Pepin. Gary Pepin was really, really good. But Nebraska had a run. We had a revolving door of athletic directors, okay?
Yeah.
And then we started a revolving door of football coaches after you'd had a football coach here for 25 years. Nebraska was very, very lucky, and they still are, whether it be softball or women's soccer or wrestling, is they've had coaches that have been here for decades.
Yes.
Like John Walker has been here. He got hired by Bill Byrne. I mean, John Cook got hired by Bill Byrne. So the longevity, I can see why they would get some run. Now, I will tell you why Dave Van Horn, in my opinion, should be on the Mount Rushmore. I started doing Nebraska baseball in 1997.
Okay.
That was the last year of John Sanders, the late John Sanders, Big Red. That program was all over the map. There was a lot of stuff going on, okay? It was, but John was always great to me. Now, John, until we made up in 2010, thought that I got him fired.
Really?
Yeah, well, Bill Byrne brought a handful of us in to ask questions about John Sanders in December of 97. And I knew nothing about what was being alleged. But John, who we had a great relationship, because we did that was the start of when more Nebraska baseball was on the radio at KLIN. And so I got to know John really well, and Craig, his son, and his wife, and their dog, and everything that John was a Husker. So he thought I got him fired by things I said. He thought for the longest time that John Baylor and I got him fired because Bill Byrne brought John and I in.
Sure.
And there was a time when I was working in minor league baseball, and John was working for the Red Sox. And I was at the ballpark one day before a game, and I hadn't seen him since he got fired here, because once he got fired by Bill Byrne, he disappeared.
Yeah.
Now, and then he got into pro ball. John walks up the stairs, and I'm like, oh no. And we had one of the greatest conversations. Nothing about his being fired at Nebraska. We talked about Nebraska. We talked about our relationship. He asked about my dad, who he knew because they were both scouts in pro baseball. But the program was not in a good spot. And Dave Van Horn shows up. He's a guy that's coming from Louisiana. Bill Byrne hires him. People are like, Dave Van Horn. He gets hired in January? Yeah. So I'm the radio guy, and DVH says, or we want to meet before the season starts. Because again, we were starting to do more games. And we went to, what is it, Vincenzo's? I don't know if it's still there in the Haymarket.
Vincenzo's.
It's
a great place.
So we went there, and we sat in a booth. And he was there, and this little guy who was a Spitfire, he looks at me, and he goes, as we exchanged pleasantries, we got to know each other, and he goes, how long have you been doing the games? And blah, blah, blah. And, Rob Childers was with him. Dave looks at me, and he goes, now remember, they were playing at Buck Belcher Field. Buck Belcher Field doesn't exist, okay? Buck Belcher Field is a practice football field. Buck Belcher Field has been gone for a while, but we'll always have Mount Buck. We'll always have the memory of the Super against Rice. DVH looks at me, and he goes, we're going to the College World Series. And I went, excuse me? And he goes, we're going to go to the College World Series. And dumb young me says, Coach, this is Nebraska baseball. You're in the Big 12. There's Texas, there's Oklahoma State, there's Baylor, there's Texas A&M. And I said, you play at Buck Belcher Field, where when they have fall ball, they have to pick up mouthpieces out of the outfield grass that are embedded. Coach, you're not going to the College World Series. So I said that to him. I was a young punk. And he goes, we're going to the College World Series. Check, please. What he did, where Nebraska baseball was to where he took it, that it's a big deal today, is because of the little man that wore number 2. Now, some people were a little upset that he couldn't win in Omaha, but my God, he went there back-to-back times.
Yeah.
I know some also were not happy with the way that he departed. I'm here to tell you, I sat in his living room while he was crying in front of me about this decision that he had to make, that there was the pull of going back home and that he was close to staying at Nebraska. We had thousands of people mad at Broadcast House, Bishop and I, because we were doing the games. We had people come and sign a card. Hey, Dave, stay. And I went and delivered it to his house. And his wife opened the door and she goes, he's in the front room. So I went in and he was like crying.
Oh.
And like 2 days later, it was too much. Norm DeBrin said, you got to come home. We got to call the Hogs. But from where he started to where he left it is an unbelievable short run. So that's why I will always in these discussions include him. Not that anybody is wrong. It's just my preference on being around Dave, that he changed a sport to this day, 23 years later?
Yeah.
People still talk about him. Like, people still talk about T.O.
Yeah.
You know?
People still talk about Devaney.
Yeah.
And
then most people weren't around when Bob was coaching. You know, I wasn't following Nebraska when he was coaching. I got to know him as an athletic director. And so I know of him getting lost, trying to find his office, him, the Tam O'Shanter, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But it's like people still talk about when it comes to him. And, people still talk about Terry Pettit. And Terry Pettit also has a case, to be honest.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the next, for me, that's the next, he's the next one.
He's kind of in a lot longer time because he won a national championship.
In 22 years.
By the way, he doesn't win a national championship if they don't unveil Little Red back in 95.
Now that's that's next level stats.
Little Red became the volleyball mascot.
Oh, okay.
95 when they won the national championship in Massachusetts. That was Little Red.
Oh, wow.
But Pettit in a little bit longer kind of was Dave Van Horn.
Yeah.
Where he took over the volleyball program and he left it at a height. Now, he got a national championship. Dave, of course, not going, 2 in the queue in back-to-back years in Omaha.
Do you know who Dave Van Horn, in a way, reminds me of a little bit?
Little Spitfire?
No. Just his success in a
Hates
short
Texas?
No, his success in a short amount of time in a program that hadn't done it a ton before that. It was a little bit like Danny Busboom Kelly in Louisville.
Yeah.
I mean, there's similarities there. They had never been to an Elite Eight, and in 8 years, they go to 5 of them, and they go to multiple Final Fours, and they go to multiple national championships. Does she get the job done? No, she doesn't. Yeah. But you cannot ignore the profound impact in a short amount of time that she had on that program. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're a great storyteller. That was absolutely awesome. That encapsulated perfectly, why a guy like that deserves to be in that conversation. And so, I mean, it's incredible. And
Peter says Connie Yori, honorable mention from Mount Rushmore. I think Connie doesn't get enough credit for what she did at Nebraska because of the way things ended. And I hated the way things ended for somebody who I really, really liked and was a really, really good basketball coach. But it just, Nebraska had a stretch where, it was good to be a fan of Nebraska athletics in the 90s. I mean, Nebraska men's basketball was rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, Angela Beck handed over to Paul Sanford. They could never get the corner turned. But you had football going. You had Terry Pettit going. I mean, the 90s were actually really, really good. But again, something that you brought up, they had a stretch where they had longevity. I mean, look at down the street at Creighton.
Yeah.
Men's basketball coach is in his 15th year. Might be doing one of the better jobs that he's done. I mean, Creighton is climbing. They're an 8 seed. They played Villanova this weekend. People are like, wow. I mean, Pop Isaacs is out. This is probably it for Mac. He'll have one more year. Kalkbrenner will be gone. I mean, he's doing a hell of a job.
As a 6 seed.
You got a volleyball coach who I still think to this day, the fact that Creighton has been able to keep Kirsten Bernthal Booth. Now, she is ingrained in the community with her family that is out in the Elkhorn North area. But the fact that as good as she is, that Creighton has been able to retain her shows you a lot about Bruce Rasmussen. Also what she thinks of Creighton, what she thinks of Omaha. But I mean, it doesn't make sense that she's still here. She deserves to be at a higher level, but she also knows that is a higher level.
Exactly.
That is Creighton. So yeah, I mean, it's,
you told me Kansas interviewed her, and when Coach Bouchard left, the first thing I said is KBB, first call. But I also thought there's no way she's going to leave because why would she? She has a great thing here.
It's a great conversation, man. And it's you go to the history of Nebraska sports, and it's Husker fans. I think love having these conversations because there's a lot of just ingrained history. And I love how, here's the funny thing though, right? We're talking about football guys. We're talking about volleyball guys. We're talking about a softball coach. We're talking about a bowling coach. We're talking about a baseball coach, right? When you have an athletic department and a school that can dip their toe and have success in all those different sports, it just speaks not only to just how things are run there and they're run in a certain and correct way, but also fan interest, right? The fact that those coaches stayed there for that long shows that, man, there was a legitimate interest in these sports. And what to me embodies Nebraska athletics is if you build it, they will come.
Yeah. I hope somebody asked today about the significance of 25 years.
I hope so too. I think that's a great point, Gary. That's a
was
great
25. Poll. John Cook was 25. That's coming up at 10 o'clock this morning. Coming up top of the hour, Sarah Baker Hansen. We have a chance for you to win another $100. We got a play that will be played. And you can tell us how it ends.
And I think Matt's going to like it. That's all I'm going to say.
I hope I do.
Which Super Bowl?
There's not too. Oh, I know which one.
The Rex Grossman one?
Cody
or the
Parkey?
Jim McMahon one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's not a Super Bowl play.
No, that's next week.
Oh. It's not a Devin.
Oh, you got a lot of good ones.
It's not a Devin Hester return?
No, that'd be way too obvious.
He was ridiculous.
I don't know, maybe. And here's the kickoff, and Hester will take it at the 2.
No. Not even that.
He slipped and he's down to the 5.
Here's where you go. Here's where you cut
First
that
down
clip.
Bears.
Here's where you cut that clip. Kickoff, and the Colts haven't done a good job this year in covering kicks. You cut it right there. Because as soon as they say Hester, everyone knows what happens. Colts haven't done a good job of covering kicks this year.
It's Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
They are. And this week's Zone Deal, which is also back, is for the Woodcliff Restaurant, voted Omaha's best outdoor patio. Ooh, beautiful day to sit outside today. It's perfect for a romantic dinner for two or a family dinner, or just eat the equivalent of a family dinner by one person. Enjoy all of Woodcliff's delicious food with a perfect view of Woodcliff Lake. Don't miss Thursday's weekly special burger or Friday's fish special. With this week's deal, get two $25 gift vouchers, a $50 value for just $25 on sale this Friday, the 31st. Oh, that's tomorrow, 9 a.m. Get all the details, 1620thezone.com.
Hey, didn't yesterday feel like a, excuse me, a beer on the front porch type weather day?
It was actually nice in the day before because there was no wind.
I am going tomorrow to a little spot. And the plan is to buy a little cigar, go on the roof at on a Friday. Have a little cigar, have a little just, nice relax heading into Royal Rumble weekend,
Okay.
Just a little
That's
kickback.
Seagull.
Just a little kickback. A little good time.
All right.
It's like a nice cigars are great, but cigars in the
What's the difference?
in the patio.
A cigar compared to a cigar.
I just like ever
You
since
walk
Ed
right into
Ogeron said it, I just like to
Go
say
Tigers.
Go Tigers. Go with that cigar, boy.
Go Tigers. Did you guys see the video when I met that girl in Omaha outside of Zesto's? I gave her the chocolate swirl. I have a question here because you're from this state and they play in Lincoln tonight. By the way, Nebraska is only a 3.5-point favorite. What is up with that? What's up with that?
Should I believe?
They've lost 6 in a row. They've lost 9 in a row to Illinois. Do we really at Illinois need to retire
Okay,
Kofi
real quick.
Cockburn's
Real quick.
number?
Real quick. Couple of things.
Do we?
I get a lot of crap for the whole Dayton Creighton thing.
Creighton.
Illinois.
Big win for Creighton
Illinois.
last night.
And do Creighton.
Illinois.
Illinois.
No. But they did Io's. Pretty sure they retired Io DeSumu's number. I'm not pretty sure. They did retire Io DeSumu's number, and all the teammates, DeRozan went, they all went. Kofi Cockburn. I mean, yes and no, because that run that they went on with Cockburn and DeSumo was like a revitalization of Illinois basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Like that program really, really needed that. It needed those guys could come in and win and remind themselves that, hey, this is a basketball program that can be amongst the national elites.
Yep.
And because they went through a weird stretch between the Deron Williams era and that era where it just wasn't at the level it once was. And so because of that, and now like them winning all those games and constantly competing and kind of gave it gave Illinois that confidence back that, hey, we should be a ranked team preseason every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're a basketball school. Hey, Champaign should be a really, really tough place to play. So in terms of like just success, like they didn't win. I don't even think they, off the top of my head, did they go to a Sweet 16? I mean, I don't think he did.
I think if you're going to retire his number, you have to retire the big white guy from Loyola. Doesn't he also get credit for a moment in Illinois basketball history? What was his name? Cameron Krutwig? When they upset him?
Oh, sure.
When they beat him in the Sweet 16? When they were the number 1 seed?
Wait.
Kofi was the main guy on that team.
Yeah. Wait. I'm confused here. So Loyola,
they should. That guy was a better player. They should retire his number.
Sure, maybe. But like,
I'm joking.
I know. I was confused what you're talking about. But anyway, just DeSumo and Cockburn were, I mean, in terms of like, they didn't win national championships or anything like that, but they were a lot, like they turned the program around. Like they needed that to happen, and they were a big part of that. Now they have a lot of success in part because they got their confidence back. And Brad Underwood is a really, really good coach.
I've got, you kids like to go with the hot take. I like to say it's a strong opinion.
Yes.
You're a hot take guy?
I that's what I've been told.
I'm going to give you a little thing. So Creighton last night won. They're now 8-2 in the Big East. They've won 6 in a row, 8 of their last 9. Could have been a little shaky after the first half. Kalkbrenner got into a little bit of foul trouble.
Yeah.
They were 3 of 15 from beyond the arc, but in the second half, whole different story. And hello, Isaac Trout.
I was about to say.
They go to Philadelphia on Saturday. I'm here to give you a hot take, all right?
Give it to me.
Because he had 29 last night. His last 8 games, he's averaging nearly 20 a game. Ryan Kalkbrenner will be more difficult to replace for Creighton than Doug McDermott was.
Well, you can't coach height. You don't just replace guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, from the standpoint of they have based the entirety of their defense off of just his long athleticism and just ability to protect the rim, and that everything else on the defensive end runs around him and what he can do. And then on the offensive end, yeah, I mean, it's just he's also really, really good at scoring the basketball and getting rebounds and creating second chance points. And it's another one of those things where, is he like the number one? We're going to give it to Kalk in the post, and he's going to go ahead and get a bucket every single possession? No, but like he's another point of contention where you always have to think about what he's doing.
I don't think there's another guy in college basketball that impacts the game defensively like he does.
I couldn't agree more.
I mean, people don't challenge the rim against Creighton because of him. Now, kudos to Creighton yesterday, and this is where I think you can tell they're a really connected team. I'm not ready to go there, but they kind of feel like maybe a second weekend team. Didn't think I'd be saying that a month ago. But they are very, very connected. Like Kalkbrenner gets a rare, we got to go to the bench because we got foul trouble. Fred King comes in. They really don't miss a beat. Like they don't go from being up 6 to being down 6. And they've got their role players are starting to play well.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a connected team. Like unlike Nebraska, I don't think Nebraska's team is connected. I also don't think Nebraska likes each other. Where I can tell watching Creighton,
it's a good watch.
They're a connected team.
They are.
But Kalkbrenner affects on one end of the floor. Now, we could talk about his offense, but I'm just focused on defense right now. He changes the game more than any player I've seen in a long, long time. People don't challenge the rim, and if they do, they alter their shot. I mean, it's amazing what he has done, and you don't go and find that. Now, we're talking about Doug McDermott, one of the greatest scorers in the history of college basketball. I'm not saying you're going to go out and you're going to find a guy that could put up 40 plus.
Exactly.
But a guy to shoot you can find. A guy that is 7 foot, that blocks shots, doesn't foul out of games, plays smart basketball, and changes the way the game is played on one end of the floor. You're not finding that guy hanging out, at 27th and 27th and Normal in Lincoln.
And also too
on the blacktop. No, 40th and Normal.
It's one of those things
right
as
next
well.
to Jim Egger.
They've played that with him being the catalyst of the team for so long now, where it's going to take them a little bit for the team and just Coach Mack in general to be like, oh, Ryan's not out here anymore. Like they're going to have to not completely change, but change a lot of what they do on both sides of the court when he's gone, just plain and simple. And so, but we talked a couple of weeks ago, and we said, look, Jemiah Neal needs to have a good game every single time he steps out on the court. And every single time that Creighton plays, they need Ashworth, Kalkbrenner, and Neal to play well. And that's a big ask. I mean, to have every single game, you need 3 guys to be playing at their tip-top shape. It's basketball. You're going to miss shots. You're going to have bad games. That's a hard thing to ask from 3 players. And Isaac Trout and his performances over the last couple of weeks have allowed that to not always be the case. Because Trout is playing so well off the bench, you don't need those guys to go nuclear every single game and be ultra, ultra efficient. And that Providence game was so important for this team because he goes 4 for 4 in that second half. And I think something just clicked. I think something clicked for him, something clicked for Coach Mack, and they realized, okay, he got that confidence. Coach Mack started putting him in more of those situations where he was thriving, and it's been great for this team. Funny enough, you mentioned the whole second weekend thing. I asked John Walker yesterday. I said the same thing. I go, hey, John, like, am I crazy to think that with this team, with how Trout and Zugic are contributing to this team off the bench, that they're a second weekend team, which we wouldn't have said a couple weeks ago? And he said, you're absolutely not crazy. Right now, it comes down to matchups. You know, if you're a 7, the difference between being a 7 seed and an 8 seed, especially this year, is quite the contrast. So you got to make sure that you're getting to that 7-6 mark, and they got to keep winning, and they got a big weekend coming up.
Hey, did they have like an accident outside of the Chai last night? Someone,
I don't know.
This person didn't know that Omaha was playing last night, and so they were at the game, and tip off. It was like a late arriving crowd,
like a Laker game. There's a lot of construction downtown, so maybe it was just a holdup with traffic. I'm not sure.
Is it common to have?
I watched the condensed version this morning, and the place looked full.
Yeah, it did.
He said tip off. He goes, where is everybody?
Really? No, look,
I'm like, well,
it
they
was a good
certainly are
crowd.
not in Vermilion.
It was a good crowd.
7:30. Maybe they thought 8 since we're way out west in the Big East.
That was a really good crowd that they had yesterday, and it was a very close, competitive game. And then it literally was. I mean, Kyle Brenner played awesome. He was just dominating in the paint, but
it was a good watch.
It was once again Isaac Trout, like his contributions off the bench sparked that team and led them to pull away at the very end of the game. So he's been a big part of their mid-season success.
All right, coming up, Sarah Baker Hansen. She's got a big project coming up. I'm just going to, with a raspy voice, I'm going to talk like this.
You sound good. It sounds good.
You should do some old school cigarette ads like they did in the baseball game.
Some ASMR.
Midway through the second half last night, I thought,
really?
oh, we're in trouble.
Really?
Yeah, because the game was like 94 feet. And I'm like, bam.
I asked you that
Very
yesterday.
sharp for Paul Mall.
I go, don't you think that's a little bit difficult? Like, announcing a high-scoring game like that where it's all action-packed all the way through the end?
With a cold, yes.
Yeah, half cold.
Next hour, Sarah Baker Hansen and Steve Sipple on 1620 The Zone. All right, for the first time in 2025, we welcome our good friend, the foodie of Omaha, Sarah Baker Hansen, who's got a big project that she's teased. and hopefully we'll talk about it. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Before we talk about what you have in the works, once again, and it's two of your favorite places, how do we win the James Beard Award this year in this town?
I mean, that's a great question that I wish I knew the exact answer to, but I don't. Yeah, we have two James Beard semifinalists again this year in Omaha. David Utterback of Koji and Yoshitomo, and Tim Nicholson over at the Boiler Room, both for Best Chef Midwest. And this is not their first James Beard go for either of them, but so great to see Omaha really representing in the Best Chef Midwest category, as I think we should be. And I hope that this might be the year. I mean, I feel like I'm saying the thing that all the people who listen to this program about sports might be saying about a team, except I'm saying it about two chefs.
Hey, so we've talked about this before when they were both up for it, and you kind of know how the process works. I mean, I recognize some of the restaurants. I mean, it's an incredible list to be on. It's an honor to make it this far.
Yeah.
But how do you, in all honesty, Sarah, how do you win this award?
Well, there's a little bit of we can know a little bit about the process, but it is a bit shrouded in mystery exactly how somebody wins. We know there's tasters who go try restaurants. We know there are panels of judges who, take the information that they get from those tasters and ultimately make a decision. And I don't know exactly who picks or how they get picked, but Omaha's had many semifinalists over the years. We've had two finalists in the past couple of years, and we've really, I think we've really are continuing to make a case to whoever those mystery people are that we're relevant and we deserve to be there, and we have chefs gaining national attention right here in Omaha who are cooking some incredible food. And so, I'm glad we're on the map. You're right. There are a lot of great restaurants nominated this year, several down in Kansas City that would be fairly quick jump for lots of Omahans to visit. And I've been to several of those on visits to Kansas City, and they're great restaurants. So, it's just really cool for Omaha, I think, to be recognized on such a prestigious national level. And I really hope one of these guys brings it home.
So, Sarah, kind of following this award, I mean, do you think that if one of these chefs were to win that award, it would have a profound impact on how people, not only just in the Midwest, but nationally, look at the food that's being created here in the city?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a huge deal when Chef David Utterback got the finalist nod. He was the first chef to be moved from the list of 30 or so that are on the semi-finalist list to the list of 5 that are actually in the running to win the award. And so I think that was a huge moment. Of course, we haven't won one yet, but yeah, I mean, for Omahans to know that we always talk about how great the food scene is in Omaha and how many talented chefs we have here, but to have that level of recognition, I think, would be obviously incredible for Dave and his restaurants, but also for everybody in Omaha. Just knowing that we are on the map, that we have in some way sort of made it to the highest level. I mean, they're considered the Oscars of the food world, so that's a big deal.
Do you know who's on the committee that decides the winners?
I do not know who's on the committee that decides the winners.
Wow.
No idea. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure somebody out there knows, but I don't. And there's a certain level of secrecy around the decision makers of the process.
Oh, that's definitely not sketchy whatsoever.
Well, it's like, who's on the academy? Do you know?
Yeah,
no, that's true. That's a
fair
good point. But that also,
to the academy.
I'm going to be honest with you, Sarah. Some would say that's also kind of sketchy. Some would say the academy is a little sketchy.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you could probably find some sketchy people on most awards committees.
Hey, so let's.
But the Beard Foundation has worked really hard to,
sure,
add different things. They want to know, they want to know about the community impact the chefs have. They want to know, what their staff thinks. They want to know. They look, I think, deeper into those things now. They've changed a lot of the criteria post pandemic.
Let's talk about, speaking of David, your latest review. This is a place that we've talked about before, and we both hold in high regard. I know the first time I went here, they're like, hey, great sushi place at 78th and Dodge. And I was like, next to the Skechers? And they're like, yes, you won't believe it. I was blown away. You just recently went back.
Yeah. The Kurabana is what this place is called. And it was kind of the Kurabana was, I did an interview with Dave after my visits, and it was the first place that he ever ate sushi in Omaha, or period. And it was the first place that I ever ate sushi when I was, in my probably early 20s in Omaha. And, it's kind of gone through some different iterations, but yeah, the longtime owner retired, and Dave, had wanted to take it over, and so has taken it over. And still the same name, but quite a different menu. And I think the biggest thing that I realized right away was that Dave had worked his magic on the sushi menu at the Kurabana. And, I think it is a family restaurant. It's a family restaurant for Dave and his family to this day, and a lot of other families. And so it's a little bit, more affordable than perhaps Yoshitomo or Ota, his other restaurant. But it's still very high quality. And I think he's really kind of elevating it to something that it hasn't been before.
What do you say to people who might be like, Nebraska's triple landlocked? I'm not going to have sushi in a triple landlocked state. What do you say to those people, Sarah? After
I would say to them, you have not met David Utterback, who flies fish in from Japan every single day and has connections with Japanese fishmongers that send him photos of giant fish, and he chooses a daily which one he wants to fly to Nebraska. And so, there is a lot of effort and a lot of cost that goes into serving sushi. I would also say that if you've not had his food before, he does some of the best beef sushi or beef focused sushi that I've ever had, which might be a nice segue to what we're launching today in the Flatwater Free Press.
Hey, well, you mentioned something, and I think this is unique, because sometimes when we think of sushi, we think of high end. You mentioned, and this is very much at the place that we're talking about. It's family style, and it's moderately priced. Yeah, it's not like you're going to the grocery store and grabbing sushi. Yeah, I mean, you're going to a place that is top notch, but it's not. I don't want to downgrade it, because it's a very nice place, but it's not like super bougie. It's a place you feel comfortable in, but it's not gonna. You're not going to, lose all your money paying to have a good meal.
Right. It's more casual, I think, is maybe one way to put it. And, I think Dave's intention with it is to, he said to me, turn it into the kind of Japanese restaurants he experiences on his regular travels to Japan. And his point was sort of that restaurant, that style of restaurant doesn't exist in Omaha. And so, like he's done before with Yoshitomo and Koji, where he, has brought yakitori, meat on sticks cooked over a grill, to Omaha. He's trying to bring a different style of Japanese restaurant to Omaha. And, I have not been to Japan, but if there's a person I trust who knows what those flavors and experiences are like and wants to bring it to Omaha, it is definitely Dave. And so, there is sushi, but there's also katsu, which is kind of a crispy fried Japanese chicken. There's noodles, there's tempura, there's a bunch of other stuff on the menu that he's really kind of slimmed that menu down, and still offering great sushi, but also other foods that people might not have tried elsewhere.
How important do you think it is to the community that there are places like that exist, in which it is, Gary, and you talk about it is family friendly. It is a place where you can bring, your family to go and eat, but at the same time, it's moderately priced, because that's something in this day and age that's a little rare. You don't really get that mix of both.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things in this specific case is that, Dave and his family go to Sakurabana. And I think in the story he said maybe Sakurabana is one of only 2 or 3 restaurants in Omaha that his kids like. And so I think, that kind of, he went there when he was a kid, for Mother's Day and other special occasions. And so, I think there's a kind of just a longstanding tradition that there are restaurants like that where, you can take your kids. There's going to be something that they're going to like to eat. It's not going to break the bank. I mean, there are a lot of restaurants like that in Omaha. And I think this one serving sushi and other Japanese cuisine stands out because of the style of food.
Here's a ringing endorsement for Sakurabana at 78th and Dodge. Chris writes in, listen to the show. My wife and her family are Japanese. This is our go-to restaurant for all special occasions, and we love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. And, even when we were there on our 2 visits in December, we saw that. We saw whole families there eating together. And so, there's places like that. And sometimes they fly a little under the radar, but they're there. And I think, every once in a while they deserve some attention. So we gave it some.
All right, Sarah. Let's talk about the main event. I was tipped off about this last week, and I got a little giddy. I got a little excited. Steak. Let me know. What are you working on? What are we doing here?
So it's debuted today.
Okay.
It is on flatwaterfreepress.org as we speak. We are launching a year-long series called Steaktown USA.
Yes.
And I am going to be writing 11 reviews for the next 10 months, 1 Omaha Steakhouse per month for the rest of the year. And then I will be back on the road around Nebraska writing 4 feature stories about steakhouses outside of Omaha across the rest of the state. And the first review is out today. It is a steakhouse, Jericho's, that I have a really personal connection to. I went there when I was growing up. It was a special place for me every year, and my parents took me there for my birthday. So I wanted to start with a place that was both an old school steakhouse in Omaha, but also a place that I had a real connection to. And so we're kicking that off today, and we've got other parts and pieces to this series that we can talk about before we go.
Let's talk about your personal connection, because this first line in your article is profound to me, that you had 2 choices each year for your birthday. One of them was, no longer there, the Imperial Palace and the Old Mill, and Jericho's Steakhouse, which is, by the way, quite the contrast there. But talk about Jericho's and the personal relationship you have and the memories you have of going there and celebrating. I mean, you call your birthday is on Christmas. So,
right.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, like you said, my birthday is on Christmas Day, and my parents would take me out for dinner. Me and my sister came too, obviously. And I had 2 choices because my dad, didn't really want to drive too far away from where I live, where I grew up in West Omaha. And so my choices were Jericho's or Imperial Palace.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much we went every other year. Because, my sister really liked cashew chicken and Imperial Palace, and I really like Jericho's. So we split the difference.
Sure.
But the years at Jericho's, I was always so excited because when I was a kid, it felt so fancy to me to go to Jericho's. And, just the lighting and the atmosphere, and there were so many grown-ups in there. I got my own piece of banana cream pie all to myself, which was the biggest moment when you're growing up as a kid. And when I've gone back to Jericho's, which Matthew and I have actually gone there several times for dinner on Christmas Eve, the same as I did when I was growing up for my birthday, it feels so similar to the place I remember from my own childhood. And so it's cool to still be able to go back to the place that you have so many memories of eating with your family through the years. And so that's kind of why I wanted to start the series with Jericho's, because I wanted to tell that story, and I wanted to tell the story of Jericho's and kind of how it came to be. I think it's a little under the radar too, so that's a good place to start.
Yeah, because it's, I don't know, would you call it a strip mall at 120th and Dodge? I mean,
I would call it a strip mall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and it doesn't from the outside. You know, you're like, and then you go inside and it looks like your old school steakhouse.
That's
and,
awesome.
You know, you might see Chuck in there, who is the owner after taking over for his dad. But let me one quick, and people go there for the prime rib, and it is absolutely a banger. But I have never had dessert there. You brought up banana.
Gosh.
I know,
Go there
because I see. Are they also known for their key lime pie?
Oh no,
they're known for pie. They make every day. They make 3 cream pies. They have banana cream, coconut cream, and chocolate cream, and they also have key lime.
Oh,
and so when I was growing up, and if you go to Flatwater Free Press, scroll down a little bit, you can see a picture of the banana cream pie, which is truly one of the most mouth-watering food photos maybe I've ever seen. It is beautiful. And when I was interviewing Chuck DiDonato, the owner, he told me that the same chef who's now semi-retired has made the pie at Jericho's for decades. Fred Kurbis is his name, and he makes the pies every day. And they have this sort of thin, flaky crust that's buttery but not overpowering. And I think cream pies can sometimes be a little bit too much, but not at Jericho's. They're kind of airy. The bananas in the banana cream pie, which is my favorite of the cream pies, so like thick and fresh. And then there's this really deep layer of whipped cream on top, covered with kind of toasted slivered almonds. It's super old school. It's like exactly what you would want, what you would envision, like a picture of a piece of pie looking like. This is what it looks like. It's one of the things I when I was growing up, obviously, I was like 10 or whatever. I looked forward to the pie. That was my thing. I really wanted at Jericho's more than the steak. But it turns out that they're also really good at steak, and they have a dedicated oven just for that prime rib that you mentioned.
All right. So as we make our way around the area and the state in Steaktown, USA, there is a stipulation, though, and people will see this in your Jericho review at flatwaterfreepress.org. Every place you go to, you are ordering the same thing.
That's right. Yeah, because I've written about steak a lot, and in this type of series, readers get agitated if you don't try the same things at every place. I've learned that the hard way. And so we will not be trying various different things. We will be trying one various different thing, but the rest of the things that we order will be the same at every steakhouse. We want it's not really billed as a contest, but in some way, it is kind of. And we're doing, for the first time ever, I've never done this before in my food writing career. We're actually doing a ranking of all the dishes that we try from 1 to 5 steak emojis. Yeah. So the other really big thing that we're doing as part of this series, and where your listeners might be able to help, is we have built a map, an interactive map of every steakhouse in the state of Nebraska. And so before today, we did some pretty extensive research. This has never existed. And so the map is live, but we're looking at the map as a work in progress. We know there are probably some steakhouses that we don't have on here yet. So if you scroll down in the story today, as you're reading it, you'll see it. If you see one that we missed, drop me an email with the name of the steakhouse and the Nebraska town where it's located, and we'll get it on the map. But the map has been a heavy lift, but one that I think is really worth doing and that I'm really proud of as a resource that can help people find these steakhouses across the state.
Well, as you know, people around here, especially in this town where we have grown up, and there are some steakhouses that no longer exist. This is a old school family, great steakhouse, local town. So I'm looking forward to this. This is fantastic. Sarah, we appreciate it as always.
Thanks for having me.
That's Sarah Baker Hansen again, flatwaterfreepress.org. She gives 5 steaks to the banana cream pie.
Heck yeah.
Nobody made a banana cream pie as good as Barb Sharp, so I'm a little bit leery.
This is Jericho's, right?
Yeah, this is Jericho's.
We got a card for that, so now I'm excited. I was anyway.
It's an incredible article. It's put together really well. The pictures are awesome. I'm looking at this interactive map. It's absolutely incredible. This is a type of thing that it's a benchmark a little bit. If you love steak and you love to go to that and do that type of thing and find those different types of places, I'll say this though. She talks about how the same chef makes the banana cream pie.
Mhm.
I grew up in Mexican restaurants with my family who, they own various ones of them. And one of the ones that I grew up in, Lazo's Tacos, would have flan. It's, this, Latin custard. And they had the same old lady for years and years and years make that flan. And every time we'd walk into Lazo's Tacos, it did not matter. You get tacos, you get a burrito, you get tortas, you get chilaquiles. We all knew at the end of the night, we were having that flan. I mean, there's nothing better than that classic staple dessert that you get to have at the end of every meal. I mean, that's absolutely awesome that Jericho's has that, and she's been able to magnify that for the people of Omaha.
I do love me a prime rib.
Jericho's, that's a banger.
Yeah.
That's a good place. There's a lot of steakhouses where I always kind of joke that they're dark, like a lot of the steakhouses in Omaha. Jericho's is one of those places where you can go and hide. You can go up and sit at the bar.
I like it even more.
Yeah, you can hide in Jericho's.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You can find that at flatwaterfreepress.org. It kicks off today. Steve Sipple, still to come. Plus, we'll talk to Lincoln Arneil, who's got big news, him and Jeff Sheldon. Their pod has been picked up. Boy, they had a busy day yesterday. So Lincoln will join us coming up at 9. John Cook, the big press conference, to tell us why he's bailing on us, coming up at 10 a.m. at the Hawks Championship Center. Last time they had a press conference in the Hawks Championship Center, Matt Rule was hired.
Yep.
Now we got a retirement. God dang it.
Hopefully there's cake.
I don't know. Do they have? They never had food at the Rule one, right?
I wasn't there. I was on break, unfortunately.
Retirement's usually got to have something.
Yeah, don't they have like somebody brings out a cake?
Yeah.
Like they go to like one of the grocery stores in Lincoln and get a sheet cake.
Yeah.
Cut it up. Everybody gets they have like workers that cut the cake up and hand it to you on a plate with a fork.
Matt Rule one time joked about, not even joke, teased that maybe we'll have food every single press conference, and that's what they used to do over at Baylor and Temple, and we were all on pins and needles the next press conference thinking we were going to get pizza, and it just
wait, y'all didn't?
Yeah, and then they built that facility where they do the media, and there's no opportunity for food.
No,
damn.
Always that Valentino's pizza with those with that salad was always great on a Monday.
We're back with more Gary and Matt after this.
He's not supposed to be here.
Yes, and don't miss your chance to win $5,000. I don't know how they'll pay that to you. Could be all in quarters, could be all in ones. Only one way to find out. It's called the Get Your, and I can't say the word, so we'll call it the Get Your Excrement Together giveaway. Register online for a chance to win the $5,000 damn dollars at 1620thezone.com.
Does it really say that? Let me see that piece of paper. Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Get your blank
Yeah.
together for $5,000.
Are they trying to get us canceled?
Probably.
Is there a
it's
hit
probably
job?
it's an inside job, yeah. Have you made enemies yet here?
I don't know, man. Made enemies.
We
everywhere.
like you.
I hope you do.
All right, Steve Sipple's going to join us here in a little bit.
I have a new basketball team thanks to Matt.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll give you, Jimmy, you shouldn't do it. You should just get out now. Like, I appreciate the support and everything like that.
That's too
We're
late.
talking about the Bulls.
The cats only break your heart.
I'm sucked in. I'm a glutton for punishment.
Actually, Ace Bailey broke you last night.
Dude, that was so... It's over. Season's over for them. They're done. You can't lose to Rutgers without Dylan Harper at home.
Sounds like me now.
Now you're on to baseball.
No, we're not. We are not. We are not on to baseball. We're on until next season.
Speaking of Ace Bailey, so he had 37 last night.
He was so good, man. I knew multiple people who went to that game just to watch Ace Bailey play. And
they did.
He's part of. So I think this draft class is as loaded as the 2003 draft class.
Wow,
that's big. They should bring back those big suits then.
Harper Bailey, Flag. I like Fears from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Guy who everybody's going to get to see tonight play for Illinois. Because if you think about, so the 03 draft class, well, they win 26 titles combined.
Off top head.
So you had
Carmelo, he won 0, but then you had Wade and you had Bosch
and you had LeBron.
But even Darko Milicic won a
NBA
title.
champion.
Yeah. Those are just the top like 4 guys that get the most run out of the 03 recruiting class.
Wasn't
draft class.
Wasn't Corver in that draft class too? In that 03 draft class? Was a hell of a drash. I almost said drash class.
So I think this draft class is as loaded as 03. I think Cooper Flag is a better college prospect than Zion Williamson.
Yeah, Corver.
I agree.
Barbosa.
Well, you also got to remember you got Trey Johnson out of Texas, and then they got the forward Baylor Hedgecombe. He's really good too. And then you're always going to have those like weird like French guys you've never even heard of, or like European players you've never even heard of that are going to pop up in this draft. And then you also got some like you're going to have some like late first round, early second round, like high volume producers like that have been in college for a little bit, right? That aren't those prototypical top 19, 18, 20-year-old prospects, but they've been playing college basketball for a little bit and will immediately raise the floor of your bench if you were to draft them. So yeah, I think that's a bold prediction because we're probably talking about maybe one of the greatest draft classes ever in sports.
But Spurs.
Cooper Flag,
Harper Bailey Flag are going to be a great trio.
Oh my God.
I think I'm all in on Cooper Flag.
Can you imagine if I think the Spurs are playing too well to end up getting one of them, but
not with that attitude. They can still get the number 1 pick.
The Bulls are losing, which is good. The Bulls are losing.
You do not want to go to the Bulls.
I am very, very happy about it. The Bulls are losing. I think they're losers of like 6 of their last 8 or something like that. They beat Denver though, because why wouldn't they beat Denver? But then lose all to the other trash teams in the NBA.
We got 2 losses.
I think they've like even go out a little bit further. I think they've lost 8 of 10.
Yeah, they're on a bad streak right now, which is good.
But Bill Belichick and Billy Donovan are friends. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Wasn't Belichick at the Bulls game last night?
Or was he? I didn't see that.
I think he was at the Bulls game. But he knows Billy Donovan. They have some connection.
But is Donovan like the uncle of his current girlfriend? Like, is that?
I don't know. Maybe, on the East Coast, they ran across each other. Last night, this will make Flaky Jake really happy. Golden State pulled an upset over the Thunder.
Yeah, I saw that.
Will not be able to go 73-9 this year.
Oh.
Golden State was plus 340 last night and beat the Thunder, even though Shea had 52.
We didn't talk about
52.
Damn. They Billy and wow.
MVP.
This is top of the Chicago Sun-Times.
Have to
Billy and Bill. Who knew? Bulls coach Donovan talks Belichick. I had no clue.
Maybe Bill babysat Billy Donovan.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
So Andre Iguodala.
Getting his number retired. We're retiring everybody's number. We just want Cook to get a statue, and the NBA says, nope. College basketball says, nope.
Why are we retiring
just
everybody's numbers? And not everybody's number needs to get retired, okay? Just because you have a good,
That's a good take.
Not just because you have a good 4 or 5 year stretch does not mean you need to get your number retired, okay? And now, if you have a stretch in where, like LeBron's going to get his number retired in Miami. They won 2 damn titles and went to 4 straight NBA finals.
You know who's not getting their number retired in Miami?
Jimmy Butler.
Cycli?
Jimmy Butler.
Dude thinks he's 25. Bro, you're 35. Stop.
But like Nick Collison getting his number retired in Oklahoma City.
Oh, that's 6-point average.
That was a touching moment. Why? He was one of the original Thunder.
Exactly. No, I'm saying that. I get that.
You should get your number
retired
if you're the answer to a trivia question.
But
that's how it works.
But there are just other, like Iguodala is one of them where it's like, really, do you really need to do that? Just say, bring him back for special events, sit him courtside, put the camera on
Roll him out.
Hey, he'll stand up, he'll wave his hand around, maybe make him an ambassador of the team and whatnot. But like, are you gonna retire Jordan Poole's number now? You're gonna retire Andrew Wiggins' number now? Because I think
Jordan Poole's face got retired in San Francisco.
I mean, it's Iguodala to get his number retired.
Now he was pretty important to the Warriors championship team.
No one's denying that, but still, he wasn't even a top 5 player or top. There were 3 better players than him: Curry, Clay, Draymond, and then there was another better player than him after that, and Kevin Durant. And then you could even argue that there were times where Harrison Barnes was more of a contributor, not so much in the playoffs, but just the total mint of like stats and whatnot.
If you say Andrew Bogut, we're out.
Anderson Varejao, they don't. What a guy.
All right, save this for Sipple. He'll join us coming up next. I'm sure he has a thought or two on the news that happened in Lincoln yesterday. John Cook retired, age of 68. He has handed the torch over to Danny Busboom Kelly. Again, the midday show will carry the press conference coming up at 10. Sure, there'll be stories to be told. Well, maybe it'll just be short and sweet.
Over under on minutes on that press conference.
19.
Yeah, John's not someone that goes like super long. I don't know. That's a good question. It might go a little bit longer.
It should.
Depends on who's there. I hope he tells stories.
It should go as long as he wants it to go.
I want him to tell stories.
Can you imagine he's talking for too long? They start playing him off the stage. You know, there's some music that comes in.
You know what? They can't do that because yesterday was a really good day for UNL athletics.
It was.
They can't. Can they go 2 days? I think they can. Sip joins us next. It's that time of the week, our chance to talk to Stephen M. Sipple of On3.com, 93.7 The Ticket.
Our favorite time of the week.
Yes. Good morning, Sip.
Is it really your favorite time?
It is. Yes, it is, Steve. You know I love you. You know I think very highly of you, and you've been very, very great to me. Of course it is.
Okay. Guys.
And you should see the ratings and the numbers we get when you come on, Steve. You should see them.
Oh, I'm sure it's through the roof.
Actually, I can verify our numbers are high on your replays. So.
Your reaction to what was announced yesterday by John Cook?
I mean, I guess I would try to encapsulate it this way. I knew this day would come. I think like a lot of, like if you're a Nebraska fan, you probably maybe hoped it would come a few more years down the line, but you knew it was inevitable. It had to happen at some point. I can't say I was anticipating it. I wasn't when it came up on my phone. I can't say I knew it was going to happen. Now I'd heard some talk earlier in the day that it could, so I wasn't caught completely off guard. But and then the reaction from there is, I mean, I've had this thought for some time, probably the last couple years, that it did occur to me one day that he pushed the program to a level where it was surprising when it wasn't in the Final Four. And I almost felt a tinge of guilt because you come to take Final Fours for granted, which should never happen. But it does illustrate the level to which he pushed the program, which was an amazing level. So I mean, and then the other thing that hit me yesterday when I was reading all the material that people were writing, somebody wrote, I mean, an incredibly striking line that he elevated an entire sport. There's just not many coaches. There's coaches you could probably say that did that, but not many. But he's certainly one of them. He elevated an entire sport.
Sip, Gary and I had a great convo about an hour ago, and I'm just going to ask you the same question because I mean I think you're one of the top guys to answer it. You know, who is on your Mount Rushmore of Nebraska athletic coaches?
Well, it's not hard to identify the top three. I think it gets more difficult after that.
Yeah.
I don't know what order you put Devaney, Osborne, Cook.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's a bit more challenging. I always say Dave Van Horn, because of how quickly he got Nebraska baseball to a national level, CWS level. But the first three are easy.
Oh yeah,
the first three are very easy. It's Osborne, Devaney, Cook.
Do you remember the transition from Coach Osborne to Coach Solich?
I remember it like it was yesterday.
It just seemed like yesterday was seamless. Like Troy Dannon just handled it really well. I remember back then, because I remember in the old South Stadium where they would have the press conferences, that little room, and they'd have that little table with the backdrop, and Coach Osborne was up there. It was just kind of like awkward, the transition back then to what we'll find out today and moving forward, that this had been planned and it was seamless. You think there's any lessons to be learned? Because we know how high regard Coach Cook has for Coach Osborne.
Any lessons to be learned from the Osborne?
Just the transition of, like T.O., like Sip, T.O. got out the way in 98. I mean, he disappeared. And I don't know what John's plans are, but I don't think he's going to hang around, the program. But, I mean, Nebraska football shortly thereafter was nowhere near what it was in 97. Yeah. And, Nebraska's in a situation where this program is just printing money and they can't afford to, have the machine all of a sudden turn off.
No, I mean, I think the lesson that sort of a difficult conversation. I don't want it to come off as negative. I'm not portending anything, but the lesson I've learned over the years is not to take anything for granted. And that's part of the lesson from now Frank continued to operate at a very high level, not as high though. There was a drop off, but what was Frank's winning percentage at Nebraska? It was extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
What was his record? I think was it 59 and
28, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It was really good. But I think, now I'm an older gentleman, and over the years, I don't take anything for granted in sports. There's no guarantees it's going to keep hitting at a high level. There's a reason. John's a big. Come on. John's obviously the biggest reason it was hitting at that level, and he's not going to be part of it. So let's see what happens. Maybe Danny Busman Kelly will take it to another level. I guess it's possible. It seems improbable. And I thought the same thing with Frank. I always thought, how's he going to do this? He's not going to probably do it any better. And he still operated at a high level, not as high, probably about what I expected, actually. That's one. I don't know. How do you do it when you're a coach like Cook? Do you come around a lot still?
Mm-hmm.
Osborne didn't. I've always thought that was the way to do it, but it doesn't. There's no handbook for this.
Yeah.
There's other coaches that would come around at other places. Like Barry Switzer came around at Oklahoma after he was done.
That's right.
I don't. Like I said, there's really no handbook on how to do it after you retire. Knowing John, I don't know, we're not best friends, but knowing John, my guess is he would be the type that probably isn't around a lot.
Yep.
That lets Danny do her thing. And I know this. That's how I'd want it.
Mm-hmm.
If I were Danny Busboom Kelly, I don't want the other guy hanging around all the time.
No. Solich was 58-19.
58-19. God, I almost nailed that. 58-19.
Steve, I say John Cook. What are the first thoughts that come to your head?
Oh, badass.
Whoa.
Yeah. How so?
Yeah, he is. He was that. His aura was interesting to me. He's a pretty serious guy. He's very serious, yet he's very kind.
Yeah.
That's a good way to describe
him. I interviewed him many times, and his aura was such that when you had an interview with John, you just knew to be ready. That you didn't want to wing it with John.
Mm-hmm.
He commanded that sort of respect. And I think, but I do also remember John as just being, if you ran into him around town, and I did a couple times at Mont Salon one time, he was just incredibly kind. He's a very kind-hearted individual, but he had sort of this sort of swagger, this aura that was, wow, look at this dude. He's kind of that guy. But he became very much a part of our fabric, our sporting fabric here. And so that's why yesterday was such a big day.
Hey, we get together with Matt Rule on Saturday. What do you think he wants to talk about?
What do you think Matt wants to talk about?
Because he hasn't talked to us scribes since the Pinstripe Bowl, the post game. They've had since that month. They've had some portal stuff, and now he gets together and talks on Saturday. What do you think he would like to talk about?
Set the tone for the winter conditioning and winter conditioning going into spring ball, kind of laying out the plan. And I think that, the transfer portal, he's addressed some of the portal stuff, but there has been some movement since we've last talked to him, obviously. I think mainly it's setting the tone and the stage going forward, going into the winter conditioning and spring ball, which I believe is going to start March 26th.
Announcement yesterday of not going to be a spring football game, but going to be some sort of spring-centric football type of deal, fall sport type deal. I was wondering, like, the impact of that for you, is that significant, or is this kind of just the new age of college football and where we're heading with, this amount of money that's been put into these rosters and the roster limit?
Yeah, it's the roster. A lot of it's the roster limits. Yes, it's huge news to me. I know it's not to everybody, and I think it isn't something of an age discussion for someone like Gary or me, we literally grew up with this. Yeah, I grew up certainly in our 20s, where it was just part of the sporting calendar in Nebraska. The spring game. When's the spring game? It was like a game we treated it almost like a game, but it was in the springtime. It was huge for the Lincoln business community. It was gigantic for the newspaper. We covered it like it was a game. So no, it was big. This is big news to me. It's predictable news. It's because of the way that the sport's evolving. But I'll tell you what, again, this is an example. I thought the leadership of the athletic department, Troy Dannon, handled it really well last night on statewide radio. I'm kind of glad he addressed it before Matt had to address it.
Yeah.
I'm not. You almost have to create a sort of a soft landing spot for this sort of thing, and keep people apprised of why this is happening. Even though some maybe anticipate it, some don't care. But I was glad that Troy addressed it. Now Matt can take it from there, because it is
a big deal in this state.
It's a pretty massive change. It's a pretty massive change.
Well, and they also, they make money. They're one of the rare places that make money off the spring game.
$1 million. They make $1 million as well. I remember Trev saying that. For perspective, you're probably paying your left tackle $1.4 million. So it's interesting. Now that you're paying these guys, a lot of them a lot of money. I don't know if you want them out there playing a spring game and risking that investment.
How much
investment? It's a bigger investment now.
Yes. How much longer should we be engaged with Rocco Spindler, who his teammate has canceled his visit to Ole Miss? It's come down to Indiana, Michigan. What this is a kind of a hard question because of portal activity and finding out information, but what's your gut say about Rocco Spindler's visit and what he wants to do next?
My gut says if it's going to happen, it's got to happen here pretty quick. By the end of the day, if he's out of here and on to another like Michigan visiting, I wouldn't feel good about. I'm going to tell you though, guys, I don't have a great feel for it. Okay. I know this. I wrote 3 takeaways. It's ready to roll when he makes his decision. If he makes it to Nebraska, I would say that if you're a Nebraska fan, I've tried to say this to people and they don't. I've gotten some pushback. I think he would be the most important portal acquisition of them all. So I'm very interested in what he does, but it's hard to read.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, we'll revisit that if he says yes to Nebraska. All right, Sip, have a great weekend. Will you be at PBA tonight?
I don't know. I don't know. I should be probably. Duty would suggest I should, but because I'm doing this Cook press conference here in a little bit, I don't know if I'm gonna. I don't know if I want to work around the clock.
You put in enough time. You deserve to pick and choose your own schedule.
Absolutely.
Not everybody would agree with that.
Well, you hang in there. We've got your back. Sip, have a great weekend.
All right, see you later.
Thanks, Steve.
That's Stephen M. Sipple.
That's the best. If anyone's deserved it, if anyone gets to pick and choose, it's Stephen M. Sipple.
So he is right. Trev did say that Nebraska makes $1 million off the spring game, which is incredible.
Incredible. By the way, too, I do want to say, like, I know that he kind of mentioned, like, for you guys, like the spring game, that, like, it was for me too, it was like for at least my group of friends, probably not as widespread as it was, when you guys were there. But I just want to say personally, I announced one spring game. That was awesome. That was a really cool experience. And those 3 years of going to the spring game afterwards, like it was legitimately like another football game. We went, we tailgated, we had a good time. It was one of the rare games I didn't have to work. So I almost took it as like a regular season football game. I always enjoyed doing that.
They got great feedback from the 1890 practice in August. I think they will gear it on the 26th of April around that, where it's a practice, coaches mic'd up. You get to see the young guys. That's kind of what you want to see with spring. Sip will miss this. This is when spring games used to matter. I should have had Sip tell this story. So there was a spring game where Breon Carnes played really well, and Sip wrote about him when he was working at the Journal-Star. The next morning, there was this column on the front page of the sports page about, oh my gosh, Breon Carnes might be the next coming. Carl Pelini calls up Sip and chews him out, going, do you know what kind of defenses we ran? It was set up for him to have a big day. That's blah, 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 blah. I think Sip could write a book about his relationship with Bo and Carl.
I think Sip should just write a book when it's all said and done, and I would buy it immediately, and I would read it because, man, the amount of knowledge and experiences and the things that you can learn, not only just from a writing journalism perspective, but also just from a Nebraska perspective, it's incredible. And he's sharp as a whip, man. If anyone remembers all that stuff, it's Stephen M. Sipple.
Like Bo when the Journal-Star was downtown.
Yeah.
Like Bo was like, get your ass into my office. Like it was going to like beat him up.
That's funny.
I would like Sip. So Sip is Bill Moose's friend. So, I mean, he might even write the foreword in the book.
Sure.
I would like Sip to write a story about the Pellinis.
That's
when spring ball mattered, when local
what?
columnists got their butt chewed by a DC.
I'll tell you something right now. I wouldn't be surprised if there's already some pen to paper on I would buy that. The life of Stephen M. Sipple.
I would buy the rights to a reality show first.
What would the title be? Motorcycles and Chickens, the Steve Sipple story?
Without seatbelts.
All right, Lincoln Arneil, who has a big announcement and also had a big day yesterday. Again, John Cook will speak in an hour in Lincoln about how we got to this decision that after 25 years running the best volleyball program in America, he decided it was time to pass the torch to Danny Busboom Kelly. That's coming up at 10. Lincoln Arneil stops by next. All right, coming up in an hour, a press conference that we knew would happen someday. It's actually going to happen today on the 30th of January. John Cook announced his retirement yesterday, said, here you go, Danny, I'm out. But first, I'm going to talk to the media coming up at 10. We talked to a guy who had an extremely busy, rewarding day yesterday.
Yeah.
Lincoln Arneil joins us. Good morning.
Good morning. I got a couple hours of sleep. We're ready to go. Attack another day of volleyball news madness.
Hey, people that have fallen in love with your coverage of whether it be Nebraska or now you're covering pro volleyball, just across the board covering the sport. But somebody who also used to before he changed professions, but still loves the sport, and Jeff Sheldon. You guys have been doing a podcast for a while now. Would you like to share with everybody that didn't get to hear what the future of the Volleyball State podcast is? Because you guys had, congratulations to you and Jeff. You guys had some big news yesterday. Oh, by the way, there was also John Cook, but big news for you and Jeff.
Yeah, we are joining the I-80 Club, kind of being part of that network with Jack Mitchell and Josh Peterson. We actually recorded our debut podcast yesterday at 1:30, and right as we're wrapping up, I get a text message. Are you hearing anything about John Cook retiring? I'm like, wait, what? And that put my mind, we still had like 2 minutes. Usually I close the show and I was like, my mind is wandering, and Jeff kind of picked up the slack. I'm like, all right, focus, let's get out of this. Then I could start texting people, and that just set off so we had a whole hour and a half conversation with all the news over the last month. And then the biggest bombshell has yet to be dropped in our lap at that point yet. So it's an exciting time. It worked out coincidentally. We're going to do a live show with that announcement last night anyways, and it just became a live show talking about John Cook retiring and Danny Busboom-Kelly coming in.
It's funny, Lincoln. So like Gary says, like you had a busy like day yesterday. I was working out and like I was thinking about the John Cook news and everything like that. And I go, oh my God, we got to reach out to Lincoln. And so then I got your contact info and I was sending you a message and I go, I bet everybody's trying to get him on at 9 a.m. tomorrow, on their radio show. So we appreciate you coming on, man. But hey, I'll just open up the floor for you. Just give me your favorite, just John Cook anecdote, John Cook story, something you're going to remember by. I'll just kind of lay the groundwork for you, and you just run with it, because I know that you've probably got a wealth of that stuff, man.
I mean, the best thing about John Cook is his evolution. John Cook is not the same coach he was. I first covered John Cook back when I was an undergrad for the Daily Nebraska, so this was more than 20 years ago. So I got to see early John Cook, kind of the dark-haired, fresh-faced guy who kind of came in from Wisconsin and took over Terry Pettit. And he was coach at Wisconsin too, but at Nebraska, you saw the glimmer of things that he was trying to do. Start with the sellout streak. I mean, that was the first thing I remember is he kind of said, "We're not playing 2 matches in one day. That's kind of silly to do." And just the ideas he had for the program, playing at the Quest Center, back then the CHI Health Center now too. It's really kind of fun to see the evolution of the different iteration of what he kind of was into. I mean, that to me is always quintessential John Cook, is his quest to learn how to be a better coach and how to be a better person too. I think that's the defining feature of what really made John Cook such a legendary coach over his 25 careers, because he wasn't the same coach he was back then as he is now too. He evolved with the times. He evolved with the sport, and he was the one pushing the sport to evolve. So it's been a really fun process. So I mean, that doesn't fit the one story about John Cook too, because I think there's a different story for every era too, whether it was coaching the Coliseum or I think, you think about his legacy, it's going to be that's what I picture as him kind of standing on that court, gazing around him at that 92,000 people watching a college volleyball. That's kind of the defining image I have of John Cook.
So Lincoln, you look at how last season ended. It's not easy getting to the Final Four, but just the way it ended against Penn State. But then you look at the roster coming back, and you're like, okay. And I'm sure that he will answer this coming up in an hour. But what do you think the reason is? Why now? Why now was this the time? Because this is a roster that could win a national title, or be competing for a national title next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's going to be my first question at the press conference is why now? So I think that, it's just time to, I don't know whether it just worked out if he's having these casual conversations with Danny as a fellow coach and a mentor-mentee relationship that where she's going to kind of a turning point in her career where it's, okay, I'm about to have a second child. Do I put down roots in Louisville? Is this my home forever, or is it Nebraska time now too? And I don't know if he felt the pressure of that, if he wanted Danny to succeed him, now is the time to move, or if the Cowboy life was just calling him. He saw that final of a Yellowstone and realizes, hey, it's time to go. Let's go get on some horses and live that Cowboy lifestyle I've always dreamt of.
Lincoln, not only did John Cook elevate the Nebraska Cornhusker volleyball program, but he also elevated the entire sport of volleyball. I want to ask you, was there ever a shift in him changing his priorities in terms of that? Was there ever, okay, I've won so much, we're so successful here, now I have my eyes toward bigger things, toward growing the sport, to getting more people involved in the sport, to putting the sport on a bigger stage? Or were those two things always melded together for John?
I think it's the latter. I think that's what came with the job too. And I think he learned that from Terry Pettit. I mean, Terry Pettit was a promoter of the sport, was always out there finding new ways to reach a new audience, get more eyeballs on TVs, and just get more butts in the seat. And I think John Cook realized that comes with being the head coach at Nebraska. You have to be a promoter. You have to push the barrier. It comes with I don't know if it's a bully pulpit, but he really has that power as one of the premier coaching positions in the United States. That he realized that if he's pushing his team, it only goes so far too, that he has to pull the whole sport with him. And he was, and it goes back again, that mentality, if he wants to try new things and learn things and learn how to be better. And to raise the Nebraska volleyball program is to raise the entire sport as well.
Hey, you probably covered Danny when she was playing here. And I mean, whether she was playing volleyball or basketball, she's always won. I mean, she has won everywhere.
Yeah.
She then goes to Louisville, and that program starts winning. The initial reaction to some is, well, why is she the perfect hire for this job to take over the beast that is Nebraska volleyball and not miss a beat?
I think it is her background too. I mean, you talked about she was a winner in high school. She came to Nebraska. I covered her when she was a setter before she made the switch to libero. That was kind of after my undergrad run, but I was able to watch that from afar. And it won a national title as a player, won a national title as an assistant coach. And it wasn't that, yes, she came from the John Cook coaching tree, but she went out and learned from other coaches too. She was an assistant at Tennessee, an assistant at Louisville before she came back to Nebraska. So it wasn't like she only had one approach to coaching. She learned from other people too. And Louisville had some success, but they were a kind of maxing out at the Sweet 16. What she was able to do to build that program and really kind of make Louisville a hot spot for volleyball, and to the point where they're selling out 20,000 people for the Final Four, is really impressive. Cook's called that one of the most impressive turnarounds that he's seen in college volleyball. So I think it's the pedigree, but it's also she grew up just south of Lincoln, whatever 20 miles, whatever Cortland is south of Lincoln too. That she gets Nebraska volleyball culture. There's no kind of acclimation period of what does it mean to be a Nebraska Cornhusker. Yeah. She knows, she's lived it, but also she's gone elsewhere and proven that she can build a program. Not that she has to build it in Nebraska, but she knows how to put together a winner is probably a better way to say that.
How critical is keeping Kelly Hunter and Julian Reyes on the staff, or Jalen Reyes on the staff?
I think it's very critical. So, I mean, Jalen has already, I texted with him last night. He's already signed a contract. He's back in. Wow. So I think it's critical to just keeping that bridge. Jalen has built a recruiting machine that has loaded. If there were 5 stars in volleyball, this Nebraska team would be loaded with 5 stars. They got more coming in over the next year or two. So I think he's kind of critical too. I mean, what he's done with building Nebraska's defense and just the culture, the continuation of culture too. I think Nebraska players have the option to transfer if they want to over the next 30 days. I'd be surprised if anyone enters that transfer portal too, just because they're familiar with Danny. If Jalen's sticking around, if Kelly's sticking around, that'll really kind of help carry over the culture and make it a smooth transition.
So part of this week is Jordan Larson, who I think should be the commissioner of LO Love B and whatever she wants to do when she's done with her playing career. But whether John was here or now Danny is here, they do have an open spot on their coaching staff. And we know how important Jalen and Kelly are for what their expertise is. What do you think they will look at for somebody, what they do well to fill that role of the other assistant coaching job that's open?
I think you need to find someone that develops outside hitters too. I mean, Jordan kind of filled that role on Cook's staff too, and now that she's going off focusing on her professional career and doing her other ventures, I think that's still kind of the role I think they need to add to. If Kelly's sticking around, she has experience with setter. Danny's played on both. I mean, she was a libero, she was a setter. She has the versatility to go back and forth too. And so I think that somebody to work with the outside hitters, the pin hitters especially, is something that is kind of needed for this staff because Nebraska, I mean, they have a lot of raw talent in there, and some of it's progressed, some of it hasn't over the last 7 or 8 years too. So I think that if they can find someone that is a pin hitter specialist that knows a little bit, that can add to the offense too, I think that's what would really fit well in that third assistant coach position.
Do you think there should be any concern about just the general transition from Cook to Busboom Kelly, just because it seemed like John had such a deep connection with this team and had cultivated so many great relationships with all of his athletes?
Yeah, there's always the risk of that when you change the person at the top leading the program too. But I think that, I mean, Nebraska volleyball culture has been strong for a long time, and Danny was here 8 years ago too. So I mean, it changes a little bit with every single group, but just being around the Louisville program the last couple of years at the Final Four, you see what kind of respect and admiration that her players have for her, and what she's able to get out of her teams. Yes, like I said, there is possibility that not everyone's going to fit. There may be some rough transitions, but I think overall the culture will be strong. There may be someone who just like John and liked his coaching style a little bit different, and it's not for them. But I think for the most part, it's a seamless transition and about a dream scenario you get.
Hey, let me ask you on a different note, because it never ends for you, and you love the sport. You understand the sport. So I see you at CHI. You were at Ralston on Friday night. How is this going to work, not just in Omaha, Lincoln, but how is this going to work in this country that we have a couple of different volleyball leagues? It's high-level volleyball. Yeah. Here in this state, there were butts and seats at Ralston. When they moved to Baxter in March, I wouldn't be surprised if they have 8,000 in there. We already know the Supernovas draw extremely well at the CHI. What do you think pro volleyball will look like in this country next year and beyond?
Well, the next year is the big question too, because the Supernovas are starting up that new Major League Volleyball league too. So I don't know. There has to be a lot of sorting out over the next 9 months or so to figure out, is there going to be 2 leagues? Is there going to be 3 leagues? But I don't. It's not sustainable to have multiple leagues. The nice thing this year is the Love only has 6 home games, so they're not going a lot head to head. I think there's one day where they play in the same matches on both days. So they're not exactly going head to head. If you love volleyball, you can watch 25 or 19 different matches in between the Love and Supernovas. So it's long term. I don't think it's sustainable. I mean, you only have so much money you can throw at the sport, and people are throwing out big numbers of their investments they're making in these leagues. But at some point that well runs dry and you need to consolidate resources. So I don't know who has the better structure, who has the bigger wallets that they can support this, but eventually there needs to be some kind of rounding up of the resources and one singular direction. I mean, you've seen this with every other league. I mean, the NFL had multiple leagues, baseball had multiple leagues, and the basketball had multiple leagues. Women's basketball had multiple leagues too. That at some point there needs to be winnowing down of which group has the right leadership, the right structure, and enough resources to push it forward.
Hey, fantastic. Again, congratulations to you and Jeff. Jack and Josh do a great job on the I-80 pod, and you guys being with them is great news for all the volleyball fans that love what you and Jeff do.
Yes, and we put out 2.5 hours of content yesterday, which wasn't our plan, but it's out there if you want to dive into it.
That's awesome. We'll see you later this morning in Lincoln.
All right. Thank you much, guys. Thanks for having me on.
That's Lincoln Arneil, who does a fantastic job covering the sport of volleyball
Job.
across the board. You can follow him on Twitter at Lincoln_VB. But yeah, the volleyball pod picked up by the I-80, and so that's a good group to be in.
Great group.
Bernie just texted in here, and this is a question because part of this is, Tom Osborne after 25 years retired, handed it over to Frank Solich. One of the things, if I press Frank, he waited too long to make a move on the staff because they went from working next to Frank to working under Frank. And, it wasn't until a couple of years before a retirement by Coach McBride and then some changes. And then there was some uncomfortable firings of guys that were long-term assistants under Coach Osborne. Bernie asked this. He said, I think keeping Cook's assistants is a mistake. Unless Danny has worked with them before, did Nebraska not learn anything from Solich to keep Osborne's assistants? Let her bring in her own staff.
So, funny enough, when Danny Busboom Kelly was coaching at Nebraska, when she was an assistant coach, Kelly Hunter was on the team. Mm-hmm. And so she coached Kelly and has a relationship with Kelly. And so I think that is a definitely a positive thing. And you got to think that if, they didn't have a positive relationship, Kelly obviously wouldn't continue to stay on the staff. And you look at a guy like Jalen Reyes, he's been on the assistant coaching staff for 8 years now. I mean, that's been quite a long time to be on just any sort of volleyball coaching staff with the amount of success that he's had to be at Nebraska. And, obviously he wouldn't be in the role that he's in if John Cook didn't think incredibly highly of him as a volleyball coach. And so, honestly, this wagon that Nebraska volleyball has created is in part a lot to do with Jalen Reyes. And so I get where that text is coming from, but you look back on the relationship that Danny Busboom Kelly has with Coach Kelly Hunter, and then also the job that Jalen Reyes has done here. I don't know if you can't get much better than that, seriously. And so I understand where that's coming from, but it just in terms of where the program is at and the job that those two have done within Nebraska, I think it's absolutely a positive that those two are still around.
And they'll have an opening. I mean, they have one opening of a full-time assistant, and that will be the choice of Danny Busboom Kelly. And it may be, I don't know that she'll take somebody from Louisville, but it'll be somebody that she's comfortable with. And I absolutely agree with Lincoln. They need somebody to develop pin hitters.
Yes.
On a different note, before we take a break here, and we're going to let people have a chance to win $100. So cue it up, Jimmy. Pete Nakos, who is Mr. Portal guy. Our good friend Rocco from Notre Dame is now at Pitt today. So that came out of nowhere. A source has told On3 that Rocco plans to make a commitment decision by Sunday morning at the latest. Weekend visits to Michigan and Virginia remain options. He's already made a trip to Bloomington, Indiana, and Lincoln, Nebraska. All 5 schools are facing enrollment deadlines. This is from Pete's article, which is fueling Spindler to decide by Sunday at best. Spindler's camp in Michigan have been working through NIL negotiations ahead of a potential visit to Ann Arbor, according to Steve Wiltfong. So there you go. Coogan, the other offensive lineman that's transferred from Notre Dame, he canceled his visit to Ole Miss, so he's looking at Indiana and Michigan.
Yeah,
I'm moving on.
The guy's playing the market.
I'm moving on.
The guy's playing the market. We'll see what happens.
What do you think happens?
I don't think he ends up in Nebraska more than likely. I think that if he were going to end up in Lincoln, he probably wouldn't have left Lincoln and would have committed, and the wheels would have been on the car right now. But it's not one of those reports where Nebraska's out. It's one of those where he's going to go and take some more visits. So we're going to see what happens. But obviously, didn't seal the deal when he came here on Tuesday.
Rocky Rococo's.
It's a
Pete's place.
No, it's a dog-eat-dog world when it comes to offensive linemen.
It is.
It really is.
There's a good cliche.
Yeah.
A dog-eat-dog world.
I love
the offensive lineman.
Dogs eating dogs.
So what do you say about running backs in the portal?
It's a well, no, I think I got a better one for you. Wide receivers are like taxi cabs. It's just they stop, they go, they leave, they stop, they go, they leave, they stop, they go. Hey, day's over. We're going to end up going to a different town called the NFL Draft. That's how it happens. I mean, they are...
It's a great show, by the way.
What? Taxi
Taxi.
cab? Or just taxi? Okay.
Cash cab?
I
Cab was
love
good,
cash
too.
cab growing up.
Wonder why cash cab disappeared so quickly.
On the Comcast Sports Network, before they closed it down, they had a Fast Money, and it was great.
I remember watching that. That was like I was addicted.
Chuck Garfien was awesome on Fast Money, and you
Yeah.
just go up, and they're like, "Oh, I would be watching as a kid, and it would be up on the screen, and they go, okay, for every 2010 Blackhawks player you name, we will give you $1, and then they just I'm rattling them off. I'm like Adam Bursch, John Madden, Brian Carcillo,
Just look something up here.
Ray Emery, Corey Crawford,
Jalen
Cristobal
Reyes.
Huey,
Jalen Reyes only makes $115,000.
Nikolai Hobby-Bolin. Really?
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to change. That is from
criminal.
2023.
That's criminal.
So we'll probably find out what his new contract is.
Give him some pizza or
Ronnie
something.
Turco.
We don't have $115,000 to give away, which would be actually pretty crazy.
That would be
have
quite the
that.
promotion.
But we do have $100 to give away. If you can't, we've never really decided on a name of this.
Yeah,
You said, what's up? And
What's up next?
And I called it what Gary calls it, what's up. So I think it's what Gary
What's
calls
up?
it, what's up.
Okay,
Someone's already calling. They know what we're going to play.
You are
about that?
already eliminated. No, but I haven't even said what the contest is. It may be something different. We may not want to take people on the phone.
Yeah.
We may have them just stop by the radio station.
Maybe.
But Jimmy's going to
person
play a
stop by.
clip. You have to finish it, and he'll bang the
We're
lines.
calling it. You ready?
Yeah.
Finish that play.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
I think we just, what do they call it? Brainstorming or workshopping? Yeah.
Finish that play.
All right. So
This is not the
play the
play.
play, and then 951
Yeah.
1620 402 951 1620. When Jimmy answers, you're in the game, and you have to finish this play.
Yesterday was a little harder, but I think in our town, people will get this.
Receiver's a wide receiver, right. Here's Brock on third down. Chased by Dent and down. The ball is loose.
Ooh, this is a tough one.
Oh.
402 951 1620. You have a chance to win $100, courtesy of Gary and Matt, 1620 The Zone. All right, today we do not have a winner.
No, I guessed wrong. I really thought for sure in Omaha this would be even at this station. Let's let people hear, and it all makes sense.
Receiver's a wide receiver, right? Here's Brock on third down, chased by Dent and down. The ball is loose, and the Bears have it. This is Wilbur Marshall with the ball. Marshall, if it's still alive, he's in the end zone. A sack by Dent, and a touchdown by Marshall.
And it was just celebration from there with the snow flying. That's what it sounded like, Matt. Imagine that. Imagine being there.
At warm your cockles there?
Yeah.
It did. Well, it warmed my cockles when I heard hit by Dent. I'm like,
I know what's coming.
Everybody got hit by Dent.
If well, then there was Otis, and then there was Mongo.
Oh, Mongo is.
Then there was Dan, Gary, Dave,
Fridge.
I would have been the biggest Dan Hampton fan if he was, and Samurai Mike. Samurai Mike. Do you know how cool that nickname is? I've always thought that
late great Dave
Mike.
Lewerson.
Why is it? What is it about Mikes and having the best nicknames? Samurai Mike, Iron Mike.
Yeah.
Then you have
Magic.
Michael Air Jordan. Magic Mike. That's not a bad one either.
That's a good question.
Yeah, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mike and Ike's.
Mike and Ike's are solid.
Mike and the Mechanics.
Mike and Ike's are the most underrated candy in the world. Don't at me, but
I don't think they're underrated.
No,
I think they
I like
get
that.
I
not
think they
enough
get
people.
proper respect.
Not enough people my age talk about licorice and Mike and Ike's.
Yeah, now your age, licorice is probably a little bit out.
It's like an old person. Same thing with
No. Red Vines is trying to appeal to you.
yeah.
Like Twizzlers is still around, but Red Vine is like trying to go with the younger crowd.
What was I about to say?
Maybe you're a nibs guy. They like the nib,
What's a nib?
the cherry nibs.
No, I haven't had them.
Do you like black licorice?
See, I'm not opposed. I've had it. It's fine. It's like I know some people think it's the most disgusting thing ever.
I think it's
I'm
delicious.
not taking a hard stance on black licorice, but I think it's pretty decent.
Black like my
Now
soul.
I'm in the minority where I do love. What would you say?
It's black like my soul,
Okay.
my heart, all of it.
I love coconut. Like I'm a big coconut guy. So
Okay.
just like
Same.
Almond Joy and Mounds.
Nice.
Like a lot.
I have a friend. Thank you.
Well, I just enjoy. I'm not saying that I'm in
I'd-
love with them. I
No,
just
you
enjoy
like them,
enjoy-
though.
I
You don't-
enjoy them more than
I would
most
egg
people.
your house if you
People
gave away
hate
almond
Almond
joy for
Joy.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Well, they should hate that. The same people like almond joy, like black licorice and black jelly beans, and then the godforsaken clear jelly bean.
Oh yeah, I'm out. No.
I
no
love
clear
I
jelly
love
beans.
ice cream candy though, like dips or dibs, like the little
okay.
biteable candies that you can get like at a movie theater and
We had
everything
ice
like
cream
that.
Snicker
Like, that's
bars.
great. Now
Thanks.
I love candy in my popcorn. And so it's like I could say like I love Milk Duds, but I would never eat a Milk Dud on its own. But I would just always put Milk Duds in my popcorn.
I don't think that's terrible at all. So, we got props.
All right. So
So you'd rather have the popcorn ball over the almond joy?
I haven't had a popcorn ball.
I was
before in
asking
my life.
him.
So the season is still going on for men's basketball at Omaha, even though they lost last night. They're actually going to continue to play.
Yes, it's
Oh.
been confirmed.
Yeah, they're going to try and start another win streak. So Saturday night is the trash can thing. So they brought this with popcorn inside of it.
Yes.
It's really nice of them to do that.
And I held it on for you. I brought it in for you.
Thank you.
did.
Did you reach in and grab some popcorn?
I
test
didn't,
it.
but one of our colleagues did.
Who put their gnarly hands in there?
So
I want to know names now.
It
So
wasn't
I was
me.
at the front with
Names now. Let's go.
our very darling colleague Cynthia, and her and I were just
Did she
standing there.
put her gnarly mitts in my popcorn?
No, she did
All right,
not.
that's good. I didn't
we
think that she
respected
would
it,
be it.
but our friend Christopher did,
Oh, I'll
and
have some
he-
speaks.
and he walked up, and I go, "Yeah, the popcorn's in here," and he pulled it out, and I go, "Whoa, I'm saving that for Gary," and he goes, "Eh," and he opened it up.
Oh.
And he started having the popcorn. And then he had like 5 or 6 pieces. And then I packed it back up. And it wasn't nearly as well packed in there. You got a nice towel. Show your towel. It's a sick towel.
Yeah, it's almost like a terrible towel.
It's actually an awesome towel.
Mhm.
Now,
By the way, this promotion I believe in karma.
You think they?
South Dakota used it as motivation last night.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I was planning on wearing jeans and a belt to work today, and I was going to at one point as a joke take out the belt and start whipping the trash can. But the thing is that they lost, and so I was like, man, I don't think that would be really appropriate to do that.
And you can't spank your coworkers. We have HR for that.
No, I was whipping the trash can, not Gary Sharp.
They had removed trash cans last night in Vermilion.
Really?
Yeah.
You were right. They really don't like you guys up there.
Oh, we don't like South Dakota.
They're jealous of Omaha's tropical climate.
Also, South Dakota has a beautiful arena. I love their arena. What they've done to the Dakota Dome,
very
nice. They don't draw. They don't draw at all. It's embarrassing.
So
because they play in a great arena in Vermilion.
My roommate and I were watching. We had a quad box on one screen, and we had a Summit League Plus on the other screen, watching South Dakota versus Omaha. And he goes, is South Dakota really good this year? I go, like they're fine. They're not great, but they're
good at home. They're now 11-1.
I go, Omaha is actually an underdog in this game because it's tough to play at South Dakota. And he goes, what? Canada. He goes, what do you mean it's tough to play at South Dakota? There's no one there.
Exactly.
Now they play a really interesting style, but nobody's going to the games. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Vermilion. There's nothing to do there. The internet sucks in the entire town. So that's a get in, get out, but that was a bad loss by Omaha last night. They just kind of melted down. But yesterday, I want to bring this up because coming up at the top of the hour, we'll carry John Cook's press conference from the Hawks Championship Center. Yesterday was a really good day for Troy Dannon.
Mm-hmm.
This is a place that I've covered for a long time, and I know a lot of people that have been in the power chair and are in charge of information. And usually there are leaks, there are drama, and there is flat-out BS with Nebraska athletics. And it serves nobody well, and Nebraska is usually reactive instead of proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday was a really, really good day for Nebraska athletics. One, the John Cook thing was not leaked. John Cook had full control over that very John Cook way to go out. Mm-hmm. Nobody knew it was coming. Nobody had a leak. It happened seamlessly.
Yeah.
From one head coach to another with two programs involved. So that is kudos to Troy Dannon because Troy Dannon was in the middle of it and had to facilitate it.
Did a hell of a job.
Then you have something that was also done yesterday that is just pure class.
I think this was the best, but I'm biased.
So it wasn't like, hey, let's send out a press release and everybody come to Memorial Stadium because we're going to do something really, really cool. They had a private ceremony for Greg Sharp. They have renamed the radio booth at Memorial Stadium after Greg Sharp, the voice of the Huskers. And they put his call of the Hail Mary against Northwestern, the entire call, on the wall outside of the radio booth. Again, it was, the Nebraska baseball program. That's the near and dear. Like those guys, man, Greg Sharp is the world to them.
Mm-hmm.
They were all there. People from the athletic department. I can't tell you. I kudos to Troy Dannon, what they've done for Greg Sharp over the last 6 months. Because remember, Greg wasn't healthy enough to do the last two football games. And he's gone through some ups and downs of late. But for them to do this where Greg could see it, when he has the ability to look at that and know that the radio booth is named after him, I thought was really, really cool. I thought even more so, they didn't make a spectacle out of it in the media. Yeah, they released it on social media and other people that were there, but they didn't say, hey, everybody come, because everybody would, because Greg is that kind of guy. I thought that was pretty damn cool. Troy Dannon had a great day yesterday. The University of Nebraska Athletic Department, which has a lot of faux pas in their history, had a great day yesterday. And I just wanted to point that out because we spent a lot of time talking about negative stuff out of Lincoln. Yesterday was a really, really good day for the guy that's in the power chair because he was damn right, down home, classy, number one for a wonderful person in Greg Sharp and a wonderful person in John Cook.
Yeah. A tremendous honor that no one deserves it more.
All right, Brian Edwards going to join us next. We'll check in with John Cook and his press conference coming at the top of the hour on 1620 The Zone. All right, this is how we finish every Thursday. Brian is putting Matt, making Christmas money for him as we welcome in the senior handicapper from Vegas Insider, Brian Edwards. Good morning.
Good morning, fellas. What's happening?
We had a tough week last week, Brian. But you know what? We're not going to get down on ourselves. We had a great 3 weeks leading up to the AFC championship and NFC championship round. But we're doing good. We're still up. We're still up with you. We're happy.
Good. Yeah, the props were kind of a dud last week.
I know,
1
man.
and 2 on the props.
We got the Hurts touchdown. That was a great call, but.
Yeah, but that was also the most expensive one. That was the finest price. But yeah, the Commanders, Daniel's got no help, and then I hit the Chiefs, but
yeah, that is true.
Tough spot for Buffalo there.
Totally tough spot there.
All right, so next week we'll get a little bit more into the Super Bowl, but let's start here. And I like where you're going. You already have pegged. You like the over, which the total is 49 for next Sunday in New Orleans.
Yeah, and I think you go ahead and play it while it's at 49 because I just feel like the public, and I actually think the sharp money will be on the over too, and 49 being a multiple of 7 is a key number. I mean, we had it, 49 and a half and even 50. Was that early yesterday or the day before? But I didn't think it would come back. And so when I saw it got to 49, I was like, give it to me now. So I think it'll be north of 49 this time next week, or maybe this time tomorrow. So I think you go ahead and play it if you agree. So 32-29 for Kansas City last week, 61 combined. The overs hitting back-to-back for Philly. 50 combined despite the snow against the Rams. Obviously, they scored 55 on their own last week. And if we discount the regular season finale when Philly rested their starters, the overs on a 4-1 run in their last 5 when these teams met in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, 38-35, 73 combined. It went over with 12:04 left on Mahomes' touchdown pass to Kadarius Toney. The Chiefs' last 8 games this year, well, skipping the regular season finale because Mahomes didn't play, but Mahomes' last 8 games, 13 touchdowns without an interception, and in his in his 20 career postseason games, 43-8 TDI-NT ratio. I don't think Kansas City is going to be able to stop Saquon, and Jalen Hurts looked really good throwing the ball last week. I love the over, so over 49 for me.
All right, let's jump into some hoops in the 2 games in the Big Ten. The Bryce Jordan Center is the place for Penn State and Ohio State. Ohio State blew out Iowa. Tough loss by Penn State against Michigan. There isn't much separation between these two teams watching them play. Penn State's a slight favorite. Your feel on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Penn State. They're playing pretty well, but they're just desperate for a win. They've actually lost 6 of their last 7 games, but they're on a 5-0 against the spread run. I mean, they lose by 1 at Iowa. They lose by 1 at home to Oregon, lose by 4 at Michigan. All those are spread covers. They have beaten at home this year. They have beaten Purdue, Northwestern, and Rutgers by 11, 4, and 8 points, respectively. Ohio State's playing good as well right now, but I like the home team, Penn State, laying the 2.5 or 3.
All right, UCLA and Oregon. It's a Pauley Pavilion. UCLA's pressure defense is pretty good. Oregon could just be a turnover machine. 4.5 point favorite to the Bruins. You like UCLA? You like Mick Cronin or Dana Altman?
I'm going to go with UCLA. So they won in Eugene back in early December, 73-71 as a 3.5 point dog. They had a lot of travel going on early in the month. And since they've gotten back home and then went back-to-back road games, but it was at Washington and at USC, not traveling across time zones or anything. So UCLA's won 4 in a row, beat Iowa by 24 at home, edged out Wisconsin, and Oregon, they've lost 2 of 3. They're 0-4 against the spread. Their last 4, 1-6 against the spread. Their last 7. I'm going to go with UCLA, laying the 4.5 at home to Oregon.
All right, Brian, let's go to the UFC here, Saudi Arabia. Man, if you told me a couple years ago that Israel Adesanya was going to be on the main event and practically free TV, I would have told you you're crazy. But it's a really, really good card. You got Magomedov versus Michael Venom Page. You got a great heavyweight bout with Pavlovich and taking on the always dangerous striker, Jairzinho Rosenstrike. And then you got some pretty good prospects as well. You got Sednar Magomedov and then Terrence McKinney as well going to be fighting there. Tell me, what's your outlook on this and what are you looking to hammer?
Yeah, let's go with Terrence McKinney to win by KO. You can get plus 200 at FanDuel, which I was shocked by. I was shocked to even get
me too
plus money here.
Yeah.
McKinney has got 7 career knockout wins. He's had 2 knockout wins in his last 3 fights and 3 KOs in his UFC tenure, all in the first round. So I'm going to go with McKinney plus 200 to win by KO against Hadzovic, who's 38-year-old. So yeah, I like that one. And then Sergey Pavlovich had 6 first-round knockouts in a row until he ran into Tom Aspinall.
Yeah.
And then he came back maybe even a little too quick and got beat by Volkov by decision, but it was a pretty lopsided decision. But I think he can overpower Jarenzo Rosenstrike. And I like the first round prop for Pavlovich, which is even money at FanDuel. So Pavlovich to win in round 1 prop at even money.
Great.
As for the top of the card,
yeah.
I'm not against the money line parlay with Magomedov and Adesanya, which I would imagine. I didn't put it in the parlay calculator. I'm sure it gets plus money.
Yeah, it'd be minus 162 and minus 200 for Magomedov, and minus 162 for Adesanya.
That'll be about plus 130, but I could be off there.
Okay.
That's just a guess on what the parlay calculator would say. But I mean, neither one of them are a given. But I favor Magomedov or Shara, as they call it, or the Bullet is what they call him.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And the style bender. So I'm not against the two-leg parlay there.
Yeah, gonna be tough. I mean, with Adesanya at the point where he's at, he could fall off a cliff at any time at this point in his career. But I like the play; it's real sharp.
Yeah, we'll see where his motivation is. I mean, if he gets beat here, he might be looking at retirement.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Oh yeah, it's done.
That'd be wild. All right. B, we appreciate it as always. We look forward to next Thursday. We'll break down some Super Bowl stuff. What do you have coming out? Last time we talked, you got a podcast. You're one of the busiest guys going. Where can more people get your info?
Yeah, if you go to the YouTube channel, Southeastern 16, just 1-6, as if, 16 teams. Southeastern 16, my podcast, I'll do it today. It probably won't be out until tomorrow, but I'll tweet it out. And subscribe to Southeastern 16's YouTube channel. A lot of great SEC content year-round, football, basketball, and baseball. I only do one show a week with them for now, but that could change. Y'all have a great weekend. So appreciate you having me.
Hey, thanks, B. All right, that's good stuff there. Tomorrow morning, will we be talking about Dub 1 or L7?
Dub 1 or L7?
Well, Nebraska
yes.
wins.
Sorry, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I'm looking at the UFC card right now. I really like Sednar Magomedov on Saturday. I don't know. He's not necessarily a cerebral finisher. He does get finishes, but minus 162, I think, is a really, really good value.
As Zach already emailed
to the main.
You started early.
You got UFC and Royal Rumble this weekend.
I have
Good on you.
a lot. Well, I hopefully end up going to the Matt Rule press conference on Saturday. Then we'll parlay that into the UFC, and then we got the Royal Rumble later. 5:30 start for the Royal Rumble. I've never experienced that before. Typically, it's at 7:00, so we'll see what happens. Only I think 4 matches on the card.
Now do the Super Bowl. Move it up an hour.
Dub 1 or L7?
Dub 1 or L7? I'm gonna say Dub 1.
I don't want to do L7, so let's do Dub 1. Don't let me down,
man.
please.
They have rolled the dice tonight to win this basketball game.
You got to go 1-0 every week. I'm sorry. The Fred Hoiberg press conference had a little bit too much Scott Frost with the got to go 1-0 every week, and we had a really great week of practice.
Can I change my pick?
Now, I'm not saying Fred Hoiberg is Scott Frost. I'm just saying there are some Scott Frost isms in there.
They don't show fight tonight. That building might be a little bit...
might be uncomfortable.
All right. Midday show will carry John Cook's press conference coming up at the top of the hour. We'll be back in tomorrow. We'll react to some of the things that John has said, among other things, and what happens tonight in Lincoln. That's 7:30 tip. Nebraska is a 3.5-point dog against the Fighting Illini. Brad Underwood in town with KJ. For Matt, for Jimmy, I'm Gary. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6.